School District 834, Stillwater Public Schools. Barb, could you please call the roll?
Board Chair Lehmann.
Here.
Vice Chair Pelletier.
Here.
Treasurer Pearson.
Here.
Clerk O'Loughlin.
Here.
Director Hepner.
Here.
Director Potacek.
Here.
Director Stivland.
Here.
You have quorum.
Thank you. Could we please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our district mission, Sarah?
The mission of Stillwater Area Public Schools, in partnership with students, family, and community, is to develop curious individuals who are active and engaged leaders in an ever-changing world by challenging all students as they travel along their personalized learning pathways.
And Shelley, if you'd read our board goals.
Thank you. As board members, we are morally and legally responsible for an equitable and quality education for each and every student in our district. As board members, we ensure decisions are made in the interest of all students, E21, and for future generations impacted by our actions. Our goals are, number one, partner with administration to assure all students are provided equitable opportunities to reach their maximum potential. 2, participate in efforts that support student and community engagement. 3, direct district efforts to develop a balanced budget for 2017-18. And 4, exercise effective self-governance.
Thank you. Are there any additions or corrections to the agenda? Director Hepner.
I would like to move action item A, the school board committee assignments and working groups, to report C, and that would be based on policy that we have, which says basically that the chair has the authority to appoint board members annually to board working groups and liaison assignments. And it seemed to me that there would be no need for an action item where the board would vote. I'm not sure what we would be voting on, given the fact that the board chair appoints those members.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
I would like to raise a question because we do have a concern about one of the appointments that there is a question. And I think there's been some discussion throughout the week as to trying to figure out what the best answer is to that appointment. And I thought we were going to have a conversation at the table to try to figure that out, to make sure we had it right.
Well, I don't think, we're not saying we won't have a discussion, it just won't be as part of an action item, because I agree with George, if you read the board policies, it's not an action item, it's an appointment by the board chair, but we can certainly have that discussion during the report section.
So you're saying then the result would be, we'd have a conversation and then the potential change would be made, but it would still be under your purview? You
Correct.
would make the decision, and the board decision is not needed?
What I'm saying is...
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification.
Yep.
I understand that.
Any other discussion?
So I just want to make sure it's going to be moved to board member reports 4 or C, one of those.
Report C.
Report, so
Okay.
up
right.
higher, Mark.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing none, call for a vote. All those in favor to amend the agenda, moving action item A to under reports as number C, signify by saying aye and raising your hand. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, could I have then, we have the superintendent's report.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. This evening, I am proud to announce that Stillwater hosted our first adapted floor hockey game in the school history. And I have a trivia question for you tonight that maybe our students might know. But does anyone know who scored Stillwater's first goal for adapted hockey? Surprise. You can't look at my paper here. The answer is John Lindbergh. We're searching for more student athletes to join the hockey team, and we're excited for the potential of this new team. We are also exploring opportunities to look at a spring sport for adapted athletes, and looking at softball and other options based on student interest. So we'll let you know how that goes moving forward. But the next adaptive hockey game is on Monday, and it's on our home ice at 4:30. So come and enjoy the game and cheer our team on. On January 16th, we held a district professional learning day. And today I'm going to give you just a sample of some of the things that happened during those days. I think many times our students think, great, day off, and maybe they do have a day off to study or be engaged in athletics or meet with friends and family, but our teachers are hard at work here with the administrators within the buildings. And on Tuesday of this week, we had several different themes and categories that our teachers and administrators engaged in professional learning around. The themes were equity and cultural responsive mindsets and strategies, student engagement, academic and instructional practices, special education, gifted education, school improvement planning, mental health, and systems work. And within those, to give you just an example, under each of those areas, and I have a copy that I'll send you in your update this week of all the specifics, but we had everything ranging from behavior supports and intervention, Orton Gillingham strategies for reading, understanding Muslim culture, professional learning for gifted learners, kids in crisis, world's best workforce aligned with instruction, and design thinking. And so when you see this list, I think you'll really be impressed with some of the things that happened during our professional learning days. It's really rigorous, but one of the things that I'm most excited to share more information with you about is one of the sessions on student engagement called Do You Have What It Takes to Teach a Pony? And it's a student's perspective. And when one of our students shares this evening she's going to be speaking about an award that she received. She was on the panel, and we'll share a little bit more with you about what that experience was like. But we were really enthused with the learning that happened during that day. We also had the honor of presenting for the Greater Stillwater Chamber of Commerce on Wednesday morning at the Watermark Church Hub. And we shared progress on the Bridge to Excellence, which many of you know is our strategic plan that we're just wrapping up this year. We have videos that we shared about the most likely to succeed and portrait graduate conversations that we've had. And then we shared the most recent Pony Pride video that our communications team helped create, and we'll share that with you later this evening. One of the council members who attended the Toast and Topics suggested and requested that we bring this to city council meetings throughout the greater Stillwater area, and so we'll be working to schedule this in the next month and share some of the good work that our kids and teachers are doing. Pastor Jarvis and the folks at the Hub were extremely helpful and wonderful hosts, and we really appreciated them hosting this event. The Portrait of a Graduate is something that we've been engaged with the board on, and we're reaching out to groups to help encourage people to attend the January 23rd session. It will be at Stillwater Middle School, and we would love to have you come and connect with our board members and other community members to share and give your input on what's important and what are important experiences for our students to have as they go out into the greater Stillwater community. We also will be hosting a community and business leaders forum with leaders from the Valley on February 12th at 6 p.m. at Oak Glen Golf Course. And we'll have some discussion from leaders in the community about what they think is important and would encourage others to attend that evening also. And finally, our fourth mental health collaborative meeting occurred on Tuesday evening. Community members, private providers, Washington County, Lakeview Hospital, Youth Service Bureau, and Family Means staff all came together to create action plans in the areas of awareness and prevention and crisis and support and crisis response for our families. You can go to our website for more details, but I want to thank our partners and community members for their dedication of time and talent to this important cause. We'd love to have new members. We have a strong showing each time, but the more people that we have engaged in this important work, the better for our community when we serve kids and families. So look forward to having more of you there. Thank you.
Thank you. Next we have the introductory items. First is the student report, and Annabelle's batting solo again.
Yes, good evening. My name is Annabel Gregg, and tonight I will be updating you on some of the happenings at Stillwater Area High School. Finals wrapped up nicely, and students were able to rest easy knowing their first semester was complete and behind them. Talk about new schedules, classes, and teachers filled the halls as students made their way through their new daily routines this week. The week of finals and the following break was packed full for many of our seniors. Community scholarships were due on January 12th, and many students used the long weekend to attend college tours, take part in interviews, or relax before their final semester of high school would begin. Student Council has been working hard to plan and market the annual Snowball Dance that will be taking place this Saturday from 7:30 p.m. to 11 p.m. at the JX Event Center. All 720 tickets have been sold out, and students are very excited. Student Council is also busy at work with Battle of the Bands, which is on February 16th. This event hosts multiple bands who compete against one another for a cash prize. We are eager to share our talent with the community, so make sure you can come out to that. For sports, winter athletes are staying busy. The girls and boys hockey teams both play Matamidi tonight at the home rink that both Stillwater and Matamidi share. The two teams aren't regular competitors with each other, which makes the competition tonight even higher. So we'll wish Ava good luck tonight. Along with that, gymnastics team is hosting Woodbury, and the boys swim and dive team is competing against Mounds View tonight. Games and meets will continue throughout the week and into the weekend. Looking ahead, spring sports registration will open on fee pay starting on February 1st. The music departments are preparing for the SEC Music Festival, which will be taking place on Monday, January 29th. Stillwater is hosting the event this year, and schools from the Suburban East Conference will play and share their musical talents. As mentioned at the last meeting, the band soloists who received high marks after performing their solos on the 4th have been invited to the Minnesota State High School League Solo and Ensemble Competition on February 10th, where they will perform again. The second half of the school year is packed with events and concerts for the music students, so there will be an abundance of opportunities to hear them perform. You can find more information about sports and activities going on at the high school at www.goponies.org and on the Stillwater Area High School Student Council Twitter page at SAHS-STUDCO. Thank you.
Thank you. District recognition tonight, we have two, so I'll turn it back to Superintendent Pontrelli.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to request that our high school principal and Fatima Manawa of Stillwater Area High School, and Brandon, we'd like you to come up too. No. Let me share with you just a short introduction. Fatima was honored at Best Prep's Educational Forum as a winner of a statewide essay competition based on former Minnesota Supreme Court Justice and NFL Hall of Famer Alan Page's keynote address, Tomorrow's Leaders, Why Character Matters. Thomson Reuters and Best Prep co-sponsored this essay competition, and Fatima was present with other top 20 students who were recognized for more than 400 essay submissions. Cool. These essay winners were invited to a private reception with Justice Page at the Educational Forum in St. Paul. The students could meet Justice Page and participate in a question and answer session with him. And I'll let Fatima and Dr. Rob Bach share more information with you.
Welcome.
Thank you, Superintendent Pontrelli. Thanks for the introduction. Thanks for doing my homework for me. That was great. Board Chair Lehmann and members of the board, thank you for having us here this evening. And it is my distinct privilege to introduce you to a very unique member of our student body at Stillwater Area High School. Fatima is absolutely a leader, and many of you have probably had a chance to interact with her through some of the opportunities that she's taken advantage of over the course of the past couple of weeks in particular, but really throughout the course of the school year. As Superintendent Pontrelli said, Fatima entered into a contest that was sponsored, an essay contest that was sponsored by Best Prep. If you're not familiar with Best Prep is an organization that is tasked with preparing students with business, career, and financial literacy skills through hands-on experiences that really try to inspire them for success in the workplace and in life. And the essay contest that they sponsored was on character and why character matters. And as Superintendent Pontrelli said, Fatima was moved enough to participate, enter submission into this contest, and was selected as one of 20 people across the state of Minnesota to be recognized as a winner. And it is my pleasure to turn her over to you and let her tell you a little bit about herself.
Welcome. Congratulations.
Thank you. Well, best for me, the competition was introduced to me last year during my sophomore year, around the spring, maybe. I was in my AVID class, and as part of our curriculum, we were doing scholarship essays, and our teacher found the best prep essay for us. For me, at first, the topic kind of confused me because character is such a wide spectrum, I think, for me. character comes from experience and life. So for me, it took like a lot of deep thinking. And for me, what came out was, last year for a lot of people was really, not a bad year, but it was really a conflicting year. And for me, I thought about the two things that make me is like, being a daughter and a student, because I am the youngest of a single immigrant mother. And because of all the sacrifices she made being here, a big part of my character has always been accountability and doing good in school. So her sacrifices can never go in vain. So for me, when I thought about character, I thought about schooling. And so I started thinking about, like, how did my character form through school? And I thought about, like, teachers like Mr. Maxwell, how our principal, like, stuff like he was talking about Portrait of a Graduate, how through Stillwater students are given opportunities to kind of speak out and give their opinions, be part of, like, be part of the wider picture that Stillwater makes. And I focused my essay around that, how especially in this political and social climate that our country is going through, more than ever, we need leaders, especially in our youth. And how schools right now need to take a stronger stand in how we teach students to not only look at the world, but how they respond to it. So when I was writing my essay, that was what I was kind of thinking about. Yeah.
Any questions?
Sorry.
Go ahead.
This is it's becoming a commonplace. From this time of night, I start crying. But I've gotten to know Fatima a little bit, and this is more of a comment. But everything that for the folks in the audience and who are listening, and my colleagues here at the table, every single thing that you just said, honey, is you brought in those meetings, in those when we discussed the Portrait of a Graduate, and the thing that stood out immediately for me is your ability to take a word or a phrase or a question or a topic, and instinctively and instantly think of a wide variety of different angles. Put yourself in other people's shoes. You empathize with another perspective, and you did it time and time again. And I'm proud. Well done. Thank you. Good job, honey.
Anyone else? Oh, Director O'Laughlin.
I had a question, if you wouldn't mind talking a little bit about the culture of AVID, just what you have experienced and how that has shaped or informed just your growth as a student, as an individual. I hear a lot about AVID being kind of this family culture, and with Mr. Maxwell, I know you're in good hands over there.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you'd just be willing to speak to a little bit about the AVID experience.
Yeah, that AVID definitely is a family culture. You're in the same class with people throughout, like from 8th to like senior year, if they still choose to stick around. And AVID for me is just, I chose the class because when I was in 8th grade, I moved here from Woodbury, and I'd been previously in an AVID class, so I took it more for comfort. But because of not only the class itself and all its benefits, it teaches you about accountability, responsibility, how you yourself, there are opportunities out there, but it's up to you to take the initiative and go out and find them, and not only find them, but make them yours. But not only those opportunities, but also, it depends on, the teaching. And what I've noticed with all the AVID teachers, like Mrs. Nickleby, Mr. Maxwell, they take personal responsibility for us. They stick around. The whole family thing, Mr. Maxwell's the one who, pushed it on us. You're a family. You're going to be all going to be together in the classroom for a while. And, over the years, it just kind of fit together, because they make it much more than the classroom. Remember last year, Mr. Maxwell, 9th grade, Mr. Maxwell did this experiment where we all got to put something that had been on our minds for a while, whether it be, I know some things were said that were really deep, some things that we didn't really expect from each other, and we all just put it in a hat, and he read them out loud. And, no one really, you had the choice to, stand up and claim it. No one did, but just reading, just hearing them and knowing that people in my classroom were going through that, it made that connection more personal. It made it more deep. And that's the kind of things that, that's what makes AVID, because, the teachers take it upon themselves to make it more than a classroom. They make it an experience. They make it real for us.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Again, congratulations. This is why, some of us really, well, pretty much probably all of us enjoy doing what we do, because we get to see how our actions come to fruition through, students like you. So keep up the good work, and we thank you for coming.
Congratulations.
Next, we have Pony Pride.
All right. As I mentioned in my superintendent's report, we're honored to present at the Stillwater Area Chamber Toast and Topics last week. And tonight we wanted to take a minute to share with you a video that our staff made, just sharing some of the exciting opportunities that our students have during their day here in Stillwater, whether they are young or old. And so we're going to play for you just a very short snippet of the video that we shared at that time.
Right.
Go ahead, Bart. Thank you.
The program did.
It is just an unbelievable experience and advantage that we're giving to kids.
I just wanted to thank Chris and her team for creating that. I think it really gives you, in 135 seconds or less, a way to share all the great things that are happening in Stillwater schools. So thank you to Chris and her team.
Can I just, yeah, go ahead. That's like the fourth time I've watched that video. I absolutely love it. I think it's amazing. I still get goosebumps when I look at it. It's great. It was really, really good. Awesome.
Is that on our website? It is. Oh, perfect.
Yeah.
It's kind of all over, so.
Good.
Yeah.
So anyone,
I'll look for it. Yeah.
Great.
anybody who didn't catch it in that second can go to the website and view it there. So. All right, next on the agenda is open forum. We have 5 speakers tonight, so let me read our introductory to open forum. If you wish to speak to the school board, you'll be able to do so at the start of the school board meeting during open forum. Stillwater Area School District welcomes input from citizens as community involvement fosters better decision-making and improved learning experiences for all students. While comments and questions are welcome during open forum, the law prohibits the board from discussing concerns about individual employees or students in a public meeting. We will stop the proceedings immediately if employee or student privacy issues are raised and direct the speaker to forward comments regarding individual employees or students to the superintendent. Because we are modeling civil discourse for our community, speakers must present their testimony in a respectful manner. Vulgarity, character attacks, malice, or specific complaints identifying staff or students by name or implication will not be permitted. The board will not deliberate, discuss, or engage in conversation with speakers during open forum. However, the board may ask administration to review the concerns presented. The first speaker I have on the list is Zis Weisberg. Welcome.
Chairman Lehmann, board members, superintendent. My name is Zis Weisberg. I live on Kimbrough Avenue in Grant. After closely following the controversial decision to close Withrow, Marine, and Oak Park elementary schools, I was interested to read Board Member O'Laughlin defend her vote on her Facebook page on October 24, 2017. Her comments generated a lot of questions. Jay Axelrod asked, "Can you articulate the impact of the school closures on the 17-18 budget? At the end of the day, how much money will be saved?" This is how Ms. O'Laughlin responded. "Thanks for the question, Jay. To briefly summarize, much of the $1.2 million in actualized savings was invested at the secondary education level as we shifted to a middle school model. This meant additional support for our middle schoolers and more programming to support a true middle school model. As we welcome ninth graders to the high school, we needed budget for more counselors and staff, as well as help relicense some of our teachers to teach in a middle school, high school model. For our elementary schools, we've increased support services, minimizing the existing service gaps." Ms. O'Laughlin was vice chairman of the school board when she wrote this. She was certainly knowledgeable about what the board approved. District residents should find these comments offensive for two very different reasons. First, if her comments are true, this board has committed a fraud against this community. The decision to close 3 elementary schools was promoted on an equity-based argument. Administrators said closing Withrow, Marine, and Oak Park would save $1.2 million in annual operating revenue. This savings would be primarily reinvested in the remaining elementary schools to provide more equitable programming and student support services like ELL and student advocates. Administrators repeatedly said the smaller schools were advantaged by smaller classes, unused capacity, and higher spending per student. They also said access to ancillary support services was unequal. Reinvesting this $1.2 million was recommended as a necessary reallocation of scarce taxpayer resources to the primary education level. Some community members raised concerns that the $1.2 million was really needed to pay for a budgeting error that underestimated middle school transition costs. The administration adamantly denied this accusation. Parents from the remaining elementary schools were promised the $1.2 million would provide more equity for their children. In fact, the district's attorney argued this exact point at the Court of Appeals, stating it was necessary and practical to close 3 schools for the equity reasons stated above. If Director O'Loughlin's comments are true, then virtually all of the $1.2 million savings was budgeted to the secondary education level. Implementing a true middle school model is an almost $1 million investment. Funding more counselors, staff, training, and licensure at the high schools would exceed any remaining dollars. The math doesn't lie. Ms. O'Loughlin's comments tell a disturbing story. The district promised equity to our community, even testified in court that equity justified the closures of 3 schools, then spent the money on something else. Remember the slide showing the 3 different sized elementary students standing on boxes. According to Ms. O'Loughlin's explanation, those boxes were given to the bigger kids. There's another reason we should all find her comments offensive. They just aren't true. A year ago, December, both middle school principals gave an excellent presentation on a true middle school model in preparation for this school year. This progressive model would increase to a 7 to 8 period day, provide an enhanced curriculum, and invest in additional staff. This model would lengthen the school day and change the bus schedule. After talking to one of the middle school principals, he confirmed the board never voted to fund, invest, or approve this true middle school model. At the June board meeting, Ms. Hoheisel presented the 2017-18 projected budget. She was asked where the $1.2 million savings from closing 3 schools could be found. She was unable to account for those savings. How do you invest money you don't have? Now, I understand the Paula from Minnesota Facebook page is not an official district communication site, but as a current school board member, Director O'Laughlin represents the district when she communicates publicly about district matters. She wasn't giving her opinion. She deliberately misrepresented how the board allocated our tax dollars. Board policy requires honesty in such communications that protects the integrity and positive image of the district. Board Governing Policy 3.5.6 and 7. Director O'Loughlin's comments are a flagrant violation of this policy. I have several questions for the board. Can any member of the board or administration confirm that this board never voted to invest in a true middle school model? How's the board going to respond to Director O'Loughlin's false comments on her Facebook page? This board has deemed other Facebook comments objectionable. In fact, Facebook comments were used in part to justify an investigation into board members Potacek and Stivland. Is this board going to eliminate the appearance of political backstabbing by enforcing their own policies against Ms. O'Loughlin as they did towards others? Is this board going to ask her to take down those false public comments?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker I have is Andrea McCready.
Chair Lehmann, members of the board, and Superintendent Pontrelli. My name is Andrea McCready, and I live on Churchill Street West by the hospital. I was a plaintiff in the 834 Voice lawsuit. In November was dismissed by the judge due to his ruling on plaintiff standing rather than on the merits of the issues brought forth by 834 Voice. At the January 4th, 2018 board meeting, a document was left on many of the audience chairs by community member Carl Blondin. I have a couple of those documents right here. When I arrived late to that meeting, I saw the documents on the chairs and asked others where they had come from. One of my friends saw Carl leave these documents on the chairs and also gave one to her directly and to a district employee directly. This document was the initial settlement offer of the 834 Voice lawsuit, an email dated November 10th, 2017, sent on mediation day from 834 Voice President Zis Weisberg to the mediator Mark Manderscheid. Mediation documents had been described to me by the 834 Voice attorney as confidential. Therefore, someone on the board or in administration may have provided this document to Carl in violation of policies. Members of the board, I'm sure you know that providing confidential documents to the general public is against board policy. I quote Board Governing Policy 3.0 Operating Norms 5.5.8, private and confidential data must always be protected in accordance with the Minnesota Government Data Practices Act. Communication among board members via email or any other channel or form of communication shall be in compliance with the Minnesota Government Data Practices Act. Board Governing Policy 4.0, Board Member Code of Conduct 1.1.9. Take no private action that might compromise the board or the administration and shall respect the privacy of information that is protected under applicable laws. My questions. Who provided the 834 Voice initial settlement offer document to Carl Blondin? What was the purpose of providing this document to Carl? Did Carl obtain this document through the written data request process? Had the board been advised that the mediation documents are confidential? Finally, if for some reason the initial settlement offer is deemed by the district to be a public document rather than a confidential document, I request the following. The reason the document was deemed by the district to be acceptable to be made public. And also, with dismissal of the lawsuit, District 834 also rejected adoption of the ethical guidelines they had proposed during the mediation process. I request that if this document is not confidential, that the district post its mediation settlement proposal points publicly and also address each point as to whether or not the district will take the action it had proposed and why. The district's response, posted publicly, will provide key guidance toward a more ethical path going forward for the district, so it would be most beneficial for the public to have ready access to it. If the person responsible for providing the initial settlement offer document to Carl Blondin is present in this room, I'd appreciate if you would respond tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker I have is Krista Thomas. Welcome.
Thank you. Board Chair Lehmann and school board members, I'm Krista Thomas. I reside at Millbrook Circle in Stillwater, Minnesota. I'm speaking tonight regarding the work session that is scheduled for you all tomorrow afternoon in regards to the facilities, and really to appeal to all of you to approach this from the most fiscally responsible approach. Really, it's no surprise that there's been an explosion of housing developments and students in the south part of the district, while there's continued growth in the central and northern parts of the district as well. In boundary discussions last year alone, at that point in time, there were more than 1,200 homes in the Lake Elmo area that were on the market. We did discuss options to utilize existing facilities and shift boundaries north, but those options were quickly dismissed. Families and students have already gone through significant changes with the school closures and all of the boundary changes, with more yet to come. As discussion occurs around where to put these kids, I hope careful consideration will be given for the most fiscally responsible approach, and that really is to use the educational space that we already have in our district. The fiscally sound option is to not further tax citizens or to expand buildings or build or add on to instructional spaces. Imposing taxes on the citizens to build or expand when existing space is available is the fiscally responsible way to go. Instead of exercising the more costly approach, priority should really be given to utilize spaces that already exist in the ownership of the district. Savings from the BOLD plan have not materialized. We are still paying for and maintaining 3 vacant schools. The plan was built on savings, and the argument was we had excess capacity, we had a declining enrollment, and we were going to have all these savings. Yet now the attempt to what feels like to socially engineer the district through abrasive and misleading tactics in order to change this behavior or perception of reality needs to stop. Further expansion and manipulation of the situation will ultimately result in more changes like redoing boundaries. And these are for students who have already undergone a major shift. So there's another option here. Instead of hiring consultants to tell us things that we already know, expanding our tax dollars to expand instructional space and digging a bigger hole for our future children and taxpayers, that they'll have to deal with that. Instead, we can look to the resources we already have. I think of a small but simple example that's real life in our family. My son, Gabriel, he got a bicycle for Christmas last year from Santa. It's a great bike. He rode around on it all summer. It worked just fine until he saw a new bike at Target that's designed to look like a professional motocross bike. So it's all souped up, and now he needs to have this new bike, right? So he has a fully functional bike sitting in the garage that's paid for, that Santa budgeted for, that was delivered to him, and now he wants a new bike. That's better. It's flashier. Something new. He can use the old bike. We don't have a couple $100s to buy a new bike when he has something that fully works. In this example, we have 3 buildings that are available. We can put kids in those spaces for all the expansion that's happening in the south. I want the best for everyone in the district, and you all have the platform tomorrow to do the fiscally responsible thing and discuss using paid-for, fully functional, empty schools within reasonable busing parameters versus using tactics of manipulation and spending more money and increasing taxes. Please take the opportunity to lead us and all of the students in our district to a better way. Be the best leaders you can be and make the decisions to guide our district in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker I have is Carl Blondin. Welcome.
Thank you. Carl Blondin, Sunrise Avenue, Stillwater, Minnesota. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Superintendent Pontrelli, I wish to address the investigative report on the misbehavior of school board members Michael Potachek and Sarah Stivland, prepared by attorney Christy Hastings of the Pemberton Law Firm. The investigator found that school board members Potachek and Stivland acted in violation of both this district's respectful behavior policy and board governance process. Dr. Potachek made a series of public statements about a district employee. The investigator found that when asked a question by the press, instead of making a straightforward and honest statement, Potachek asked a rhetorical question crafted to cause people to read between the lines and assume that someone, a district employee, had done something improper. Potachek made a statement that was a thinly veiled attempt to foster ambiguity. Potocnik did nothing except allow controversy to continue to swirl, fueled by innuendo that he helped create. Dr. Potocnik, by his words and actions, impugned the personal and professional reputation of a district employee, intentionally creating a hostile work environment for that employee. Dr. Potocnik, your words and actions have no place in civil society. The investigator found that Ms. Stivlin's comment about a district employee showed disregard for the truth, an uncontroverted fact. The report on Sarah Stivlin's behavior, among other things, addresses her attendance at a so-called town hall forum held in Stillwater on July 25th and hosted by Jennifer Bai, Ms. Stivlin's membership, participation, and comments on a closed 834 Voice Facebook page noted for crude, profane, and mean-spirited comments, and Ms. Stivlin's comments at the August 10, 2017 school board meeting. One of the speakers at Jennifer Bai's town hall forum made a false allegation of misconduct against a district employee. Shortly after that false allegation, Stivlin made a blanket comment on the closed 834 Voice Facebook page, praising all the speakers at Bai's town hall forum for their great information. Stivlin did not exempt the speaker who falsely defamed the district employee. The investigator found that Stivlin's Facebook comment was disrespectful in violation of district policy, and another undisputed fact. Stivlin was informed of the false and defamatory statement made by the speaker at Jennifer Bai's town hall forum, but Stivlin did not retract her praise of the speaker, nor did she clarify her statement, nor did she say a word in support of the wrongfully defamed employee. Rather, Stivlin let her support of the false and defamatory statement stand uncorrected. Stivlin's actions betray that her intent was malevolent. At the August 10, 2017 school board meeting, at a time when she knew all the facts related to the town hall forum speaker's false and defamatory statement about a district employee, Sarah Stivlin showed disregard for the truth and stated the facts are still evolving. By falsely stating that the facts were still evolving rather than acknowledging the truth, Sarah Stivlin impugned the character and professional reputation of a district employee. Sarah Stivlin, by her words and actions, created a hostile work environment for that employee. Ms. Stivlin, your words and behavior have no place in civil society. Potocnik and Stivlin were well aware of their own misconduct and voted against the investigation that would eventually lay bare their misdeeds. Their votes were akin to attempted obstruction of justice. They did not want their unethical behavior exposed to the world. I am disappointed with this board's tepid response. The taxpayers should not be stuck with a bill for the dishonesty and unethical behavior of Potocnik and Stivlin. Potocnik and Stivlin should be ordered to pay for the cost of the investigation and report, a cost that arose solely because of their unethical conduct. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Last speaker tonight I have is Sandy Hayner.
Lee, go on. I will call the police now.
Sandy Hayner is our last speaker.
See this.
Please. Welcome.
Hey, thanks. So my name is Sandy Hayner. I live at Lydia Circle in Stillwater. So I have this other thing I want to talk about, but first of all, George, I still haven't received the answers to the questions I asked you 4 months ago regarding the questions I had regarding compliance with the Minnesota Data Practices Act. And I just want to add that I think that's kind of ridiculous, especially considering your induction to the Minnesota All-State School Board, but hey. Okay, so the other reason I'm here is to talk about the community conversation that I attended recently. It was called Most Likely to Succeed. It started with 3 leading videos. Some of them were conflicting with one another, but also very one-sided and seemingly picked to lead the viewer to one mindset. This was further confirmed by the actual lack of conversation. We were instructed to only speak to one partner for 1 minute, and they were not allowed to respond until their allotted time, which was also 1 minute. That, my friends, is not a conversation. Then we had a handful of minutes to talk amongst a group of 4 or 5, but only about the specific questions that were on the worksheet. We were only permitted to share our thoughts on the given talking points, then with the larger group. So out of all the questions that were on the sheet, we got to answer a snippet of our ideas to the larger group, and somehow that is called a conversation. It is not. The group ideas had to be whittled down to just a few sentences, not fully sharing, not discussing those ideas. There are not even any room for questions, and the only question that was asked was by me, and it was never answered, which is, what does it mean? What are you talking about when you say success? What does that mean? Whose definition are you using? Who did you ask? Is it the student's idea of success? Because it seems like we're talking about success as the business owners see it, in which collecting a paycheck, that equals success. And I just think that it's more than that, or it should, anyways, be more than that. So naturally, some groups were talking over their allotted time, and we were told that the reason that it needed to come to an end is because we might have 4 ideas, but limiting the time really helps us narrow down prioritize the ideas. However, this also limits creative and critical thinking and serves only to reiterate the agenda of the videos that were chosen. It is predictable Delphi technique, and I think it's crazy that we're talking about how we want students to be innovative and really dig in and find out, what it all means, and yet in the conversation about that, we are not allowed to do it. I didn't hear any talk of what students want either while we were there, and I just think if it's their experience, maybe they should have a say. So what do you mean by success? By whose standards? Are the students even being asked? Why so much influence of business owners? Then the first question on the handout was, based on the needs of the new economy, what experiences must we ensure all students have before they graduate? Well, A, what about the needs of humanity? What about the needs of students? I didn't hear anything about that. Secondly, experiences make us who we are. Typically, the best, most life-impacting experiences are organic and come from a culmination of the previous experiences and choices we've made. Do you propose to subject all students to the exact same experience and yet somehow show videos that stress the importance of individuality? Which one is it? I encourage all community members from all walks and stages of life who attend these meetings to demand an actual conversation where diverse perspectives are shared and new ideas are actually developed. At this meeting, you did the same thing to us as you do to students. Sit and get, as Mr. McDowell called it. Very little time for input or digging deeper for meaningful thoughts or conversations. Later, you'll come up with something and claim that the community helped frame this new plan of yours, but how will we know that's true, rather than you just picking and choosing what you wanted to hear? What if we saw students as human beings who, rather than having cookie cutter experiences to make sure they all come out to feed the needs of the economy via consumerism and employment, we thought a little bigger? What if we mentored them to find the center of their own special genius and be the gift to humanity they were all born to be? Remember when our kids were little, we didn't aspire for them to become taxpayers or employee of the month. We wished more for them. We wanted them to be the authentic person we knew them to be. We could see all their potential inside those tiny little bodies, and somewhere along the line, someone convinces us to let go of that and believe that success means making all their bosses' dreams come true, getting a check for doing so they can go buy more stuff and hope it'll create happiness and fulfillment. I'll share a story about my daughter who said it very well at the young age of 5. She hadn't been subjected to the typical what do you want to be when you grow up training that kids get when they get into school. We never asked her who she wanted to be because we were just enjoying who she was. A little friend of hers asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? And she responded like it was the dumbest thing she'd ever heard, myself. Her friend pressed further, no, I mean like what are you going to be, your job? Maggie responded, I don't know, but I'm sure it'll be awesome, still having no idea that her 5-year-old dreams were supposed to become someone else's prized employee. The friend, frustrated with the non-answer, continued, no, like your job. You can become a firefighter or a doctor or something. Maggie, sick of the whole thing, scrunches her face and responds with a profound truth bomb. What? No, you are who you are. It's in you. A job is a thing that you do to make money. A job is not a human. She said human. It's cute. Anyway, I agree with her. So let's give our kids a little more credit, and perhaps humanity would be a little better off. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, next is the consent agenda. All items under the consent agenda are considered to be routine by the school board and will be enacted by one motion and an affirmative vote by a majority of the board members. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a board member so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered by subject of a discussion by the board. Tonight, the consent agenda consists of the school board meeting minutes January 4th, 2018 and January 4th, 2018 special meeting. Gifts and donations dated December 2017. The disbursements registered December 19th, 2017 through January 11, 2018. The treasurer's report December 2017 and the Human Resource Personnel Report. Could I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Thank you. A second?
I'll second.
You can choose, Barb. Thank you for the second. I think I have Jennifer and someone else. So, all those in favor signify by raising your hand and saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Consent agenda is adopted. We have 3 reports tonight. The first report is the literacy curriculum, Dr. McDowell and Ms. Larson. Welcome.
Thank you, Chair Lehmann, School Board, Superintendent Pontrelli. There we go. It is my pleasure tonight to introduce Ms. Rachel Larson, who's going to take you through the really great and amazing literacy work that we've been working on for over the past year. It's one of the biggest initiatives on the learning side of the house that's been worked on with Karen Lateral, who couldn't be here tonight. She's not feeling well, and so Ms. Larson's going to take her place and bring you through tonight a report on really where we've been the last year, how we followed the curriculum review process for our K-5 literacy, some of the things that are going on right now, and then what we will be bringing to you as a request as we move forward to scale this larger than the pilot that is in place right now for this first year. So I'll turn it over to Ms. Larson.
Thank you, Dr. McDowell. Good evening, Board Chair Lehmann, Superintendent Pontrelli, members of the board. I am thrilled to be here to represent Karen Lateral and all the teachers that have participated in the District Literacy Committee study, review, and now pilot that is taking place at Brookview Elementary and all other elementary schools throughout the district. So as we think about really the main reason why we're here tonight, and that's to work within our schools with our teachers and our students and our families to help students develop a love of reading. And with that love of reading, giving them the skills to understand their world, and as Fakuma said earlier, to shape that world. And then how do we help students discover their passion? And key things that we based a lot of our thought process on as we went through this with teachers and really studied where we're at within literacy in the district is what is the sound research that we know of that we can anchor everything we do with elementary literacy in. And really a meta-analysis of literacy research says there's 3 main things. If you want to help students get a love of reading, you need to provide texts for them that are high interest, something that they can connect to and are passionate about. You need to make sure that they have time for eyes on print. They need a lot of time to read. And then they need explicit expert instruction by teachers. So those are 3 strong research-based techniques that we're basing our recommendation and process on tonight. So the purpose of why I'm here is in regards to policy 1.2 curriculum. And if you look at the right of this slide, we go through a process of study for a curriculum framework that has and sets out administrative policies and procedures for this. And last year we were in a study and evaluate session for literacy curriculum at the elementary level. And this year we are in evaluate and recommend, so we're doing a pilot. Brookview Elementary, the whole entire elementary is doing the pilot, and then we have teachers in each other elementary building also participating in the pilot. Then we'll make a recommendation to you, as Dr. McDowell said, later on, and then we'll go into implementation next year, and then continue to monitor and evaluate moving forward. We've had a philosophy of literacy instruction within our district, and we revisited this with teachers and staff and said, where are we at with how we want to anchor our mindset with literacy instruction? I just want to highlight the words in bold for you that really resonated with our staff in the district, and that's a district-wide culture that follows high-quality, research-based reading instruction in a balanced literacy framework, focusing on 21st century skills of collaboration, communication, critical thinking, and creativity. We also made sure that as we looked at all the literacy instructional pieces that we wanted to take into place, that we were aligning that with the World's Best Workforce and the Read Well plan by third grade, and the component of World's Best Workforce measuring third grade readiness levels. So a big kudos goes to the teachers and staff that you see on the screen before you. These teachers have put heart, soul, skill, and sweat into really leading this pilot and looking and analyzing all the things that are going well and all the things that can help teach their colleagues next year as we move into full implementation. So big kudos to them and a big thank you for all of their hard work. It's exciting if you've been out in the buildings and are able to connect with what they're doing. So when we looked at this process, we wanted to maintain a balanced literacy approach to instruction. And as we often say, reading is teaching thinking, and writing is making thinking visible. And so when we looked at a balanced literacy approach, we wanted to get all the fundamentals of literacy instruction: reading, writing, listening, speaking, viewing, presenting. And so as we looked at various models and curriculum options, we decided to choose overwhelmingly. The committee came full circle to Lucy Calkins' units of study reading and units of study writing to make sure that our balanced literacy approach instructionally and also with resource support included all the components you see before you. So as we look to this process of literacy implementation, we have collaborated with staff along the way. Staff from every building was invited into the process to be part of the Committee of Research and Implementation, and all were welcome that wanted to be a part of it. And so when we came together and asked for insight on how we could best do this, we heard strongly that they wanted a chance to collaborate and learn, and also have a slow and scaffolded approach to this. So as you can see, these are the pieces that we're slowly putting forth over a 3-year investment and professional learning plan for literacy. And so we're starting with the benchmark assessment system, and that's about a 3 to 4 minute little assessment that allows teachers to meet with kiddos one-on-one to see where their reading levels are at, so that they can give them books and give them materials and lessons that allow them to both glow at where they're at with reading levels, but also an opportunity to grow. We're also studying a literacy continuum and where reading levels are at with kids that follow the balanced literacy framework. We're continuing with PRESS, which is our Tier 1, Tier 2 instructional format. Letterland, that is a phonics program for PK and K. And it's important that I highlight with you tonight that the study that we're doing is comprehensive. It will, over the next 3 years, be an E12 study. So this has included PK, and I really want to thank Amy Berge and Annette Salmon and all the PK teachers for coming together too. So this is a PK 5 study right now, and this spring we'll be advancing that on to 612. Then Lucy Calkins, units of study reading, we're in pilot right now for that this year, and then that will be Words Their Way is a spelling curriculum that we'll be looking at also implementing next year. And then the following year, to Scaffold, we'll add units of study writing. And the teachers are really excited about having a writing curriculum that's coherent. So the pre-K 5 literacy investment of where we're at over the next 3 years, you can see broken down here. The benchmark assessment system, Letterland, Words Their Way, classroom libraries, that's something I really want to highlight, because if you're in some classrooms right now that are doing the units of study reading, the teachers that aren't in the study this year are asking, can we please start getting some of these resources? Because classroom libraries will be present in every single elementary PK5 classroom next year, and that is not something we've seen in the district. We have had pockets of accessibility for books, and so what that means is each kiddo will have a book bin. And in that book bin will be books that they select based on their interest that they get to read, but they'll also have books that allow them to glow, books that are right at their level and they can ease through and just enjoy, and books that will help them grow, books that will challenge them and help bring their reading level up. And they'll get to roll through a variety of those books. So the days of having a whole class read has been surpassed. So it's now about helping each individual kiddo at their reading level grow. Then the reading units of study and writing, and then professional development to make sure that we're supporting teachers not just on a one-time basis, but continually throughout the year to make sure that they're getting the learning and the skills they need to deliver that explicit expert instruction. And as we know, when we think about our kiddos' start in the district and where they're at right now, anywhere in the elementary level, literacy is the foundation for our kiddos to just develop those thinking skills and those communication skills and to explore the world that they live in and the world in which they'd like to shape. So we are absolutely thrilled with where we're at for the pilot, and thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you. Any questions for Ms. Larson? Director
Sorry,
Hebner.
go ahead.
Just 3 comments. In the philosophy of literacy instruction, you highlighted the bold print, and when I went through this, what I noticed was the very last couple lines, all with the goal of developing independent and lifelong literacy learners. I want to compliment the group of teachers who came up with that. I think that's what we should be doing with our literature and reading classes. Under the balanced literacy approach, I have long, both as a teacher and since I've been on the board, have been a proponent for independent reading. I think kids being able to choose the literature that they would like to read, I think, is very important. And today, I know some other board members probably got this too. ASCD sends out this education update, and one of the key articles today was why every class needs read-alouds. Mm-hmm. So I think we're doing the right stuff with read aloud, independent reading, shared reading. That's a wonderful list, and I know I'm a little bit biased because as a high school teacher, it's really enjoyable to get kids who love reading into your classes. And then lastly, just a compliment about the spending of the money. $660,000 is a significant sum, but if my math holds true, 75% of that is for classroom libraries and professional development, 2 areas you highlighted, and I think that's exactly where the money should be going. And I've been in some of those elementary classrooms that do have the classroom libraries, and you know that. The kids are very proud of being able to go to their boxes and pick out the books that fit for them. So thank you to that big committee that you've got, the District Literacy Committee, and to you and Karen and all the folks involved in this.
Thank you.
Director Stivlin?
Yeah, can you just explain just a little bit about how, so the BAS is the assessment, and just from what little I know about it, that's from a different literacy program. Is that, or is it just a standalone assessment? And who has that been done on so far? Is that just, did we just have that, we just used that in the pilot so far? Can you just kind of talk a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. So correct. BAS is the benchmark assessment system, and that is through Fontes and Pinnell. Okay. And so in part of our study, we've looked at resources, not just within one realm, but what are the resources we really need to provide what we do for our kids. And we are training all teachers this year on BAS. So by spring, all our teachers will be using the BAS. And what that means is every kiddo will have had at least one opportunity individually with the teacher to sit down with some text. And the teacher has the student read some passages, and then the teacher just coaches them.
And can I just interrupt you? Is that, can you just clarify what grades with that? Is that K-5?
Yeah.
K-5?
Yeah.
So we're not doing
EK
that.
can also look at reading levels if they have early readers.
Okay.
Yep.
So then, is there something like the BAS that would be used at, like, say, the middle school level? Or what would the transition look like then going up into all the way through grade 12, I guess?
Yep. They could continue with the BAS assessment because if the student hasn't maxed out on the BAS level or the Lexile level of where they're at, teachers could still administer the BAS to say, okay, a kiddo's still at this level. Here's the Lexile that would meet their needs. And then it would also give a measurement for more of the informational texts that content texts tend to be for where kids are performing.
So then when we're talking about the Lucy Calkins, are we talking mostly K-5 for that as well? Because I know that also goes all the way up, but I don't think it's as commonly used. Is that?
Correct. It's not as commonly used, but that's something we'll assess when we bring 6-12 teachers in, is studying, what we're moving to in an elementary framework, and then what does that look like in 6th grade, especially as a bridge, and then what do we want our 6-12 literacy experience to be.
Right. And so then I just have one other question, if you don't mind. How are families, or has there been conversation around how families will be integrated into this process? Because as a mom, my kids are all out of school now, but as they were growing up, something I was always craving was more information from the school about what can I do at home to help them do well. And, is that component included at this point, or how is that being envisioned at all?
Yes, the teachers in the pilot, and teachers are doing this regardless of if they're currently looking at the new curriculum, but teachers are communicating with parents what levels their kiddos are at. That's part of the conference. So when parents come to the conferences in the fall and then in the winter, they'll learn about where their child's reading level is at, and that's when the teacher can really personally explain where their kiddo is and make meaning of all of this. But it's also in the book kits. Those classroom libraries that the kids have, those book bins, they also get to take them home. So you'll see kiddos carrying little packs and they get to switch out, and they love their little in-class libraries.
So one thing I know that with the BAS, they're learning what reading level they're at. So is there a way to kind of express that to a parent to say, if they're getting one of those level book, the glow level of a reading level for their child, it's not that hard for a parent to say, okay, I see where my son or daughter is at, and so if I go purchase something else or get something from the library, can kind of match. I mean, is it hard for parents to kind of follow along?
Nope, and we even have recommended lists that teachers can provide for families that may be checking other books out.
Other titles?
Yep, other titles. And this is something where we really encourage with families. We get a lot of questions about specific skills families can help with at home, and the research is all about eyes on print and reading out loud, not the instruction because it's so explicit. Instruction by trained educators in the classroom, but families, the best thing parents can do is read to their kids, read with your kids, and then just let them have time with eyes on print and having fun.
Yeah.
Director O'Loughlin?
I just had one comment and one question, please. So I agree about the classroom libraries. I think that having access for the students, I meet more and more families every day who simply don't have access to the resources that their students need and that their children need. So I think that investment is remarkable, and I think it's, like George said, exactly where the money should be allocated. My question was if you could just talk briefly about the intersection of how this overlaps with our English language learners or maybe our multilingual learners, and just kind of what that, in a brief overview, kind of what that looks like in terms of the advancing literacy for all.
Yeah, that's an important question. And part of this literacy framework is also bringing in English learner staff so that they learn the curriculum and strategies as well, so they can mimic and mirror those strategies, because this is all about what creates good readers. And so these EL strategies are right in with this unit of study practice. So I think the biggest benefit to this type of method for an EL learner or a learner that is at any level is that it's personalized. The entire framework, you're not going to see every kiddo with the same book in the classroom or the same lesson. Teachers will give mini lessons, but you'll see the majority of literacy time breaking into groups where kiddos are working at what their level is at, and that's where you see the growth with kids.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Director Potacek, did you have something?
Yes, I did. My question, and I'm trying to choose my verbiage very well here because I don't want to offend anyone in the audience. So one of the present structures we're working under is our proposed strategic plan, the world's best workforce, which is dictated by legislation. Now, I don't say that as a begrudge that legislation, but one of the benchmarks that's in there that's commonly used is third grade reading level. Who makes it, who doesn't, and to bring attention to that in particular for those who don't achieve that ability by third grade. Because unfortunately, it's often a predictor of lots of trouble with future education. How does that mesh in all of this?
That was actually one of the anchors that the committee really appreciated, and we appreciated as administrators, is that this directly correlates to those measurements. The BAS is something that allows us, along with PRESS and FAST, to really look at how are our kiddos growing. And instead of looking at little daily assessments and projects, how do you also build in those benchmarks fall, winter, spring, so that we know if what we're doing is making a difference. And that's how it really aligns. And we're getting a lot of feedback from teachers that they're able to adjust instruction and the book levels for kiddos so that a kiddo at this level isn't having to wait 6 weeks to then get something that's at their level for that growth, so they're able to continue growing. So we're seeing it highly complement.
Yep. Director Pearson?
Thank you. Just a couple quick. First, just an easy one. So are we going to go back to Lexile again, or are we keeping the letter?
We're keeping the letter. Yes. Yep.
Good. I like the letter better.
It's parents, yeah.
The second,
we still correlate it with the Lexile,
okay.
but
the second you may have said, and I apologize if I missed it, but is the BAS assessment the same thing that will be done on the first 2 days of school when all the kids don't start school together, or is that a different assessment?
yes, that may be one of the assessments. Yep.
Okay, and you said that was how long? It takes how long?
Just a couple of minutes.
Okay.
Yep, just a couple of snapshots of the kiddo reading and the teacher just giving some guiding.
Okay.
And then marking errors and accuracies.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Just like to make,
yeah.
Just like to make one more comment before Rachel finishes up, or before you finish, with Mike's comments about the world's best workforce. He mentioned, how does it look with reading well by third grade, and what Rachel mentioned earlier about the strong work that's happening with our early childhood pre-K teachers. There aren't very many places that are doing that. That's a really strong component of getting your kids ready for kindergarten. So it not only aligns with Read Well by third grade and third grade work that we're doing, and the time and quality of professional learning that's happening for our teachers, designed with our teachers and with Rachel and our staff, is really exemplary. And I think right now, if you go down, I know Director Stivlin was able to go down to Brookview and take a look at what's happening and see the work in action, and we would invite any of you, if you'd like to do that. I know that Mark Dormerhausen would be happy to show you.
It's a beautiful school. I was very happy to see it. Tons of light. Yes, very happy. Did you have something you wanted?
No. I wanted to make sure what we would cover when we come back in February as far as what we're going to be presenting to have you vote on moving forward.
Oh, okay.
Director Pelletier?
Yeah, I'm just so very pleased to hear this presentation. The grow component is obviously necessary, but the glow component has been missing. I feel like it was missing in my all three of my kids' education, and I think it's just you don't know what you don't know at the time, and I think giving, to your point, giving the opportunity for kids to just freely read. It's what are we trying to accomplish? We just want them to be readers, and I can't even believe how exciting this is, that they can have these two options. It's amazing. So I thank you so much for that. And then I just also had just a question. This may be a little bit hard for you. I don't know. But so I think you commented earlier that this Lucy Calkins style was far and away better than the competition. Can you by any chance speak a little bit, in what regard did it stand out? And to Director Stivlin's earlier comment about kind of communicating with parents. You know, how may a parent learn about that specific change in the curriculum so they can kind of stay ahead of it? Because I felt like that was missing a little bit too for me. So I'm excited to see this.
Yep. We've already developed some of the communication pieces that we'll share with parents when we go district-wide with this. So those pieces are in place, and teachers are giving input on that as to how they would word it in parent language so that it makes sense and it's not edu-speak, so to speak. But to answer your questions about the Lucy Calkins approach, one thing that stands out is the love of reading, the glow and the grow, and the time for eyes on print. A large portion of the literacy instructional time is students spent reading, not just receiving instruction, but the ability to read and practice and have individual conferring opportunities with teachers. It also balances writing. And some of the other programs we looked at were strong, but they didn't do a job holistically that we wanted to see. And they also didn't have as strong of the classroom library approach to give our kiddos exposure to books and materials and resources that they're passionate about, also informational texts and nonfiction reading, and just allowing them to glow and grow.
Yeah, a follow-up if I could. Honestly, I cannot possibly stress how huge this is because, you know, at Lake Elmo Elementary, for example, where my older two attended, I felt like the kids were always, some kids had books, many didn't, you know, and that was always a challenge. And, you know, you go to the library and they may or may not have them. So I just want to say, you know, just with conviction, this is exciting and wonderful. And again, one more time, thank you very much. Yeah. That's a good improvement. Thank you.
And just as we end here, I just want to reiterate that this is what happens when you turn to the professionals and you let the teachers give their expertise and input and help drive the approach that we want to see. So it was a team effort. So thank you.
Director Pearson.
Sorry, I have one more question, which what you said kind of segues with that. Can you talk about how our teachers can bring in their own individual passions and what they love about reading, is what the space is for that within the program?
Yeah, so, and teachers do that on a daily basis, right? But key pieces, if you look at the balanced literacy approach, where teachers can do that, are the read-alouds, and also the shared reading and interactive reading, because those are opportunities where teachers are reading to the kids and able to give strategies like, great readers use their finger to guide the words with their eyes as they follow the passage. Or great readers identify key terms they know before they start reading. Or great readers look to find keywords they don't know before they start reading. So it gives teachers the opportunity to read aloud while simultaneously reinforcing the concepts of Calkins, of skills great readers do. So you'll hear that in the classroom a lot, of teachers using that reinforcing language of great readers to build that skill.
Director Stivlin?
Just one last thing. Would it be possible for us to get some of the links to some of the research on this literacy program before we decide to spend district funds? I think it would be really good to have a little bit of deeper knowledge on, you know, what the pros and cons, what are the really big, strong research out there showing that this is the best way to teach literacy. I'm sure there's a lot, so I haven't even looked into that, but that would be really helpful. It may be helpful to be able to share that with our parents as well. I think that, you know, there are probably parents who might be interested in that as well.
Absolutely.
That'll be great. Thank you.
We'll share that. Thank you for your time tonight.
Alice?
Thank you.
Thank you. So, as Dr. McDowell said, we'll be voting on this in February?
Yep, so two things. Based on policy, and well, both based on policy actually. In February, we'll be coming to you with the official recommendation of this as our elementary literacy curriculum. As Ms. Larson pointed out, in our policy, when we make a large curriculum change like this, it requires a school board decision moving forward with that. The second piece is, as Director Hepner pointed out, the classroom libraries are the big cost with this one. And just to make sure that you understand that it's not an additional cost that we're asking for. We're going to prioritize this inside of our existing budget on the L&I side. So we aren't going to be asking for more money than what we already use. We're going to prioritize this over the next 2 years, but because of the sum being over the $100,000, we're going to need to ask as a recommendation for you to approve that. So I just wanted to make sure you were clear as you were thinking through what was presented tonight. It's a large curriculum piece, that's why we're bringing it to you as a recommendation. And secondly, simply because of the actual cost of the libraries, it will already be inside of the approved general budget, and we will prioritize that across our budgets of learning and innovation to pay for it. It won't be additional or above and beyond.
Director Potacek?
A question I have, and you don't even have to answer it tonight, but I think in preparation for a decision, is that going to have an impact, a labor impact on the media center and what's in there, or the personnel in any of those instances?
No, and in fact, what I would recommend is that you take a trip down to Brookview and see how Principal Drummerhausen and his team have now reworked what their media center looks like with regard to now having these large in-class libraries, and actually they work in concert with one another now. It's actually a great situation. We were just down there today and saw it.
It's important to know that students still have access to library resources. They're not limited to their book bins.
Well, the kind of thing I'm looking at, and it's because in a prior occupation I worked with about 25 librarians in a lot of schools, and the thing that was always different about the libraries, and especially the librarians, unfortunately for a lot of people, it just means handing out books. That's not how librarians and media center specialists work. And so I think perhaps that's a nice model, a good model. I haven't seen it. I would like to see it in Brookview. But I'm saying particularly in our schools, elementary schools, that aren't new buildings, that aren't new institutions, how that's going to be impacted by them. And I appreciate your comments, but I also am curious about the present librarians and how they react to that. And I don't even like to use the word present librarians, because where I'm from, they didn't call them that. They call them library media specialists because of the old and the new.
Mm-hmm. Again, thank you. I think for the public, as Director Stivlin said, there's probably people out there who, are intrigued by these studies and all that, but I think the takeaway for us lay people is that really the bottom line is you need to read to your kids, and you need to make sure that they spend time reading, because that is the key to success. And I know George has said that many, many times, and it is as true as it was when I first came on this board, learning about all the different programs that we have here in Stillwater, but the bottom line is read, read, read. So thank you. The next report is Reimagine Minnesota.
Thank you. So the purpose of this presentation this evening is just to give you a balcony view, an overview of the work that's happened with Reimagine Minnesota over the last couple of months. And for the community, if you haven't been in tune with Reimagine Minnesota work, it's a collective group of over 40 school districts and communities coming together to collaborate and develop a purpose or a sense of how to provide services for our students in a different way. And you'll see on the presentation that we'll be pulling up here in just a minute, the purpose, thank you. The purpose of Reimagine Minnesota is to ensure the constitutionally guaranteed right to adequate education for all students by creating a comprehensive collective action plan to address integration, access, opportunity, and educational achievement. And as a reminder, about 18 months ago, communities across the metro area came together and invited people to from all communities to come to some world cafes that were throughout the metro area to share and have conversations about where the barriers and challenges to educating all students. The process has been, which you see in front of you. The first round was World Cafe meetings with clusters of districts that identified the barriers that happen within the metro and outstate area also. The second round was small groups of superintendents and their district staff coming together to analyze all the barriers that came from the information that was harvested from the World Cafes. The World Cafes had multiple and very diverse groups attending them, and there was a lot of information that was shared. And so it was the task of the small groups of superintendents with district staff to really look at that and decide, all right, what's important in this, and what do we need to bring forward? The third round then was school teams throughout the metro areas coming together in groups to analyze and look at those barriers and then identify strategies that might be helpful moving forward. And again, there was a lot of feedback in this process. There were many student voices. I know that some of you attended a conference where it was all student voice, sharing with us what the changes needed to be within our districts. So you see in front of you where the groups that came together trying to harvest all this information thought, how do we make this so that it's concise enough so people understand what we're trying to do, but not pages and pages and pages of documents, because there's really a lot of information behind this. And so you'll see the three categories of see all, serve all, and support all. And under each one of those, you can see that there's a purpose for each one. Seeing all is really, who are our students? How do we help connect them so that they have strong relationships and they feel welcomed in their schools and communities and feel like their families are also welcome? Serve all is really looking at personalized and relevant education to all students that guarantee access to the rigorous learning. And it says eliminating predictability based on race. Race should not predict how well you're going to be successful in school. It should really be looking at your passions and your interests and helping to support students in a different way than we have in the past. And then finally, support all is looking at equitable resources. You've had lots of conversations around this board table about how to align your resources, and resources are not equitably aligned throughout the state and the metro area. And so how do we provide opportunities for all students so that we minimize that opportunity gap that we know exists for students right now? There are three different areas when you try to look at, and I'll share with each of you, there are strategies here, and I have copies of those that I'll have Director Potacek pass down for each of you that help make this a little bit more easy to understand because there's a lot of information. But if you look at the strategies identified by these groups, we put them into three different categories for you. The first is teaching and teachers, another will be student support, and the final is system funding and leadership. And so when you look from a high level at all the work that's been done around Reimagine Minnesota, the first is focusing on teaching and teachers. And you can see there a number of bullet points that are focusing on retaining teachers, recruitment of teachers, culturally inclusive standards, personalized education. I'll note that on the second bullet where we have prioritize and ensure personalized education with an emphasis on acceleration. I know that many times we talk about acceleration with our gifted students. In this case, the acceleration is talking about students who are behind and how do we accelerate their learning faster than a year at a time if we expect those kids to ever catch up. So acceleration is a little bit different in the meaning of this slide. The second is student support. And when you look at student support, it's what one of our speakers talked about earlier. How do we have student voice and leadership and really improve inclusiveness and our students feeling like they belong and they are valued within their schools. And our students have done a great job of standing up and talking to us about what is important and what they need within the school day. And I know that that is something that's really important to our team, is listening to our student voices. Then you can see the second bullet, eliminate disproportionality due to adult behaviors and policies and provide growth-oriented student support. Many of you know that our policies need to be revised, and some of them limit our students. And really, when you look at discipline and some of the other things that our policies can sometimes be limiting for our students. And so we have to be very proactive in what that might look like moving forward. And then finally building bridges between schools and communities so that schools and communities work together to access all the resources they can for their students. The final slide that we'll share with you is the system funding and leadership. And the groups that talked about this really talked about creating and sustaining continuous shared understanding of what equity is and is not, and then a high level of skill application for leaders at all levels. And then finally, ensuring equity in a statewide funding system. And for those of you who work closely with funding with school districts and some of the policy and at the legislative level, you know that there is work to be done there. So those are the three large categories: teaching and teachers, student support, system and funding, that are part of this Reimagine Minnesota work. So what does that mean for Stillwater? Our next steps is for the school board to identify a community engagement activity to gather feedback on the Reimagine Minnesota plan from those who attended the World Cafe. I would recommend that you invite those who are there, and then others who are interested. And I've had a lot of questions about how does this relate to a new strategic plan. It should be part of your strategic plan, and it should lie right underneath your World's Best Workforce. As you look at these different categories, you can think of the categories you have within World's Best Workforce and how it should really integrate. It's not another thing, it should be part of that. I noticed I put there already the aligning the strategies with our new strategic plan, and then our district will see all, serve all, and support all of our students. When you look at this plan, it's overwhelming. There's a lot of work. When you look at the 8 different strategies and know that under each one there are many different projects and things that can happen, you should feel good that we have plenty of things happening already under those places, under those themes. But part of your work will be, as we move forward with the strategic plan, to identify what are those things that are most important for our students and families here in Stillwater. Questions?
Any questions? Director Pelletier.
Yeah, can you explain in a little bit more detail under the equity strategies, just kind of elaborate a little bit on that first bullet point: create and sustain continuous, consistent, shared understanding of equity and high level of skill application for leaders at all levels. So that, is that more of a, this is for the leadership?
For leadership.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and can you, in what regard is, what does that mean?
Well, some of the work for 2 years, Director Pelletier, before 2 years previous, we've been doing some work with Terry Lewis and Bonnie Dahlhauser and culturally competent leadership.
Okay.
And so this school board has already been working on that for 2 years in alignment with our administration, same thing. But it's not just for the leaders in Stillwater. It's really, remember, this plan is for leaders statewide and regionally. So part of the conversation around the table has been, what are things that can happen to help support leaders at all levels, school board, administration, principals, to make sure that people are more, have the opportunity to be more culturally proficient.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else?
So I just,
Director Stivlin?
sorry, I keep
No,
forgetting
that's all
to raise
right.
my hand. I just blurt out. I used to get in trouble for that in school, too. Can you just clarify, maybe you said this and I missed it, this whole process has been initiated by AMSD, is that correct? Is that, am I remembering that right?
I wouldn't say that AMSD initiated it. It was the superintendents coming together. Initially, if you remember, there's the Gutzman case was, I believe, heard last, and Paula, you might be able to give more information also Tuesday. It was online. I wasn't able to hear it, but at that time it was, it's a lawsuit that's going on within the City of Minneapolis about not having a free and appropriate public education for all students and having the resources to follow that. So it started from a conversation about that, and instead of having a legislative group come together and try to give recommendations based on maybe not having a lot of knowledge or data, having the school districts and communities come together to identify what the barriers are and how they'd like to have them addressed.
Mm-hmm. And you may have said something about this too, but how is is this just been primarily the Twin Cities communities, or have the rural communities been involved as well?
Rural communities are can be involved if they would like to be.
Okay, okay. And I think one of my questions that I had for you tonight, I think you kind of touched on, but maybe you can say a little bit more. What specifically, how will all of this work really kind of enter into our work as a board, part of our strategic planning? Can you say a little bit more about that, or at least what your vision is for that?
Well, for those of you who have been at the Portrait of a Graduate conversations, that is talking about success. We've been gathering a lot of information. You haven't defined that, so that will be part of the taking all the information and creating a draft about what it is that we define as success for our students. There's not one definition. I think all of us know that. It means something different for every family. So the Portrait of a Graduate conversations and the others that have taken place throughout the community are to start forming that. The most likely to succeed conversations are not just about business and finance. They are really about giving kids opportunities and their passions and interests. That's something that many parents do think is important. Again, everybody has their different point of view on how important that is, but really the purpose of those conversations is what experiences do you want to see for your kids? It's not about limiting, it's asking the community, what do you want to see? And so for those people who come, I think, sharing what you expect is really what we want to hear. And then finally, the Reimagine Minnesota, this is a high level of all of the districts coming together saying this is the direction we need to go as a state. Our work will be to bring our community and give them the opportunity to come in and share about how they think some of the strategies that are most important moving forward, and then you can integrate that with your strategic plan, as part of your strategic plan.
That's great. And can I just ask
Sure,
one more
absolutely.
question? I'm sorry. So I have a theory that I've kind of been curious about for a long time, that one part of this conversation has to do with what we use for assessing students. Has that question ever come into this conversation? And if so, can you talk about that at all? I mean, I think about the quote, Einstein's quote, everyone's a genius, but if you judge a fish by how he can climb a tree, he'll think he's a failure, right? So how do we determine what success looks like in school? What assessments are we using? And is that part of the conversation that needs to happen?
It is, and that's been part of the conversations for much of it. I passed out the Reimagine Minnesota strategies there, but I believe it's one of
The
these.
yellow one was
And
yours.
the yellow one is my copy. But it has been part of that conversation, and that's not only, how do we assess students at the district and local level, but what impact do we want to have at a state and national level? Because if we say that just the academics is not the only important thing, right now those are the only measures that the state has, and so it will be having the opportunity to influence legislation about changing what that might look like moving forward.
Great. Thank you.
Director Pearson?
So thanks for the presentation. You mentioned that right now we're not equitable in the state. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because when you say that, I feel like it implies some have more than they need, but that's probably maybe not the truth, or maybe it is, and you could talk more about what that means.
When you say some have more than they need, tell me more.
Well, I just because you had said that our system is not equitable, which would tell me that, if we use that picture we've used before with the boxes, that would imply, and I don't know if it's true, that some districts or some students or some areas maybe have more than.
Sure, I think one of the easiest, without pitting people against each other, is if you look at metro area districts compared to rural districts. When you have a smaller district, you have fewer students and you have less resources. So if I choose to live in outstate and have a very small district, I might not have a number of resources. Many of the districts, you aren't going to find AP classes for your students. You aren't going to find, you saw the video clip where we had literally almost 100 different activities and athletics for our students. You aren't going to find that in outstate.
Okay. May I just
Director
add
Laughlin?
to what Shelley was questioning? I think part of it too is
That's the only one I got.
with so many of the schools, with the lack of resources.
I thought that when you passed it, I thought,
And having then proportionate, the highest teacher turnover rate. So you're not having, your most highly skilled veteran teachers in those places. I was just talking to a parent
there you go. See, they're looking out for you.
recently, and they were saying that they don't have facilities for their students to play sports. They're in the Minneapolis school district, and so they have to go to a park. And so, I mean, and that's kind of just one example. But I think, just the inequities that exist definitely between the rural and the metro area, but even within, some of our own metro districts, because it's all tied to, or the bulk of it is tied to property taxes and levies. And some communities, just aren't able to have as much as others. So I think it deepens the divide.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you for that presentation. All right, the last report is what was moved from an action item, and I'll take this. These were the board member assignments for 2018. Let me first start out by, for the public, our board governance process and board governance rules 8.0 set out the duties and the responsibilities of the officers for the school district. Specifically, Article 5 talks about the chair. 5.1.15 says that the chair appoints the board members annually to the board working group and liaison assignments. As you'll recall, at the organizational meeting on January 4th, I am tasked as the new board chair to do that. So I went back and looked at the board the minutes from that board meeting, and wanted to make sure what Director and Vice Chair Pelletier and I did to fill these roles was in fact what I stated we would do. So I went back and watched the meeting, and just for full transparency, at 42 minutes and 33 seconds, we discussed the school board member assignments. I indicated at that time that Director and then Vice Chair Pelletier and I would be meeting to fill these roles, and that each board member should send to both of us their interest and in various organizational groups. I also indicated that I would like to rotate people through the various groups. And that I also said at 47 minutes that both Jen and I would be meeting to fill these positions. We in fact met the following Saturday at Caribou to do that. It was also pointed out at 48.45 that the goal was to be fully transparent, so that there wasn't going to be any indication by anyone that we weren't going to make assignments till they got the emails from the board members as to which positions they wanted. And I thought it was somewhat ironic that also during that same discussion, it was pointed out that it's important to remember that even though you fill out the email to us, you may not get the appointment you want. So subsequently, I received the following emails. This was an email from Paula O'Loughlin. Dear Chair Lehmann and Vice Chair Pelletier, I would like to express my interest in the following. Board Representative 916, Committees Finance and Policy. Thank you for your consideration, Paula. I received the following email from George Hepner. Liaison, choice number 1, Equity Alliance, EMID. I promise I won't ask for this one next year. Choice number 2, the Community Advisory. Choice number 3, AMSD. Working groups, my choices would be any of the following as needed. Finance, Policy, Personnel. Indicating he wasn't interested in legislative or community engagement. Received the email from Director Pearson. Hi, Tom and Jennifer. I would like to serve on CEAC. Secondary choice would be C. Besides finance, I would love to serve on the community engagement group. Also willing to serve on legislative or personnel. Thank you. Received on January 9th from Director Potacek. Good morning, Tom. Thank you. You know, we talked about we have a common interest in the Gopher wrestling team. Congratulations on your election as chair. Regarding school board representatives and working group, in priority, I would like to continue as District 834's representative to Northeast Metro Intermediate District 916. Working groups, I would like to serve on the Finance and Operations Working Group. I'm very interested in serving on the newly formed community education or community engagement working group. And then talked about if we were going to have negotiations, would be interested. He wanted to make sure that at least one other board member would be in negotiations, but we didn't have that this year because of we're not in a negotiation. I subsequently, on Friday, January 5th, received an email from Director Stivland. Hello, Tom. Congratulations on being elected chair. I know you will do a fine job with keeping us moving in the right direction. I just wanted to let you know that you can put me wherever you think is best. As far as the committees, I would love to serve on the new community engagement group, policy committee, as well as legislative group. So those were the emails that I received relative to the placement in these groups. As I indicated, Vice Chair Pelletier and I then met on Saturday, January 12th?
Oh, geez.
Well, 15th was Monday, 14th was Sunday, 13th. January 13th.
Yes.
We had all of the emails and we had all of the discussion relative to filling these. So it was based upon that conversation at the board meeting as well as the emails that we then went about filling these positions. And as such, pursuant to my board role, the positions were filled as follows. Association of Metropolitan School Districts, AMSD, Jennifer Pelletier. Community Education Advisory Council, Director Pearson. Equity Alliance Minnesota, George Hepner. There was no one else who requested to be on that. Minnesota State High School League, Sarah Stivland. Northeast Metro 916, Paul O'Loughlin. Partnership Plan, Tom Lehmann. And Schools for Equity and Education, C, Mike Potacek. I would say, and Vice Chair Pelletier can speak for herself, but I put myself in the position that no one else wanted. So I wasn't taking a position that anyone else had asked for, and that's why I read those emails. No one asked for the partnership plan, and so I did what I thought was important, was basically just take what was left and filled myself into that position. With regards to the school board subcommittees, Finance and Operation, Paul O'Loughlin, Shelley Pearson, Jennifer Pelletier. Legislative, Tom Lehmann, Jennifer Pelletier, Mike Potacek. Personnel, George Hepner, Tom Lehmann, Sarah Stivland. Policy, George Hepner, Paul O'Loughlin, Sarah Stivland. Community Engagement, Shelley Pearson, Jennifer Pelletier, Mike Potacek. Subsequently, I have heard that Director Potacek would like to be reappointed to 916. Again, as I had indicated, in full transparency, my goal was to try to rotate people. I had two people who were interested in 916. Both Director Pelletier and I felt, again, that if we had indicated we would be willing to rotate. Again, I found out on Sunday evening at about 8:30, after we had met, that Director Potacek had been appointed or elected the chair for Metro 916. So the conundrum came that what do you do? So Director Potacek contacted me, and I had indicated in an email that I felt comfortable with my decisions, that it was open and transparent, and that if he truly wanted 916, he should talk to Director O'Loughlin, because that's who we had appointed, and I think that's where it's at. I would say to everyone, this was not done out of spite. That's not who I am. I think you could talk to people who know me, both personally and professionally. I don't operate that way. Again, it was done with, as I had indicated on the board meeting on January 4th, that I would not make any decisions till after I received all of the emails from everybody, and that both Vice Chair Pelletier and I were looking at rotating people. So with that said, those were the decisions that were made, and those are the appointments. So I'll open it up to any comments or questions. Director Stivlin.
Thank you for, my first question that I had written here was, can you give us some background? That was excellent background. Thank you very much for going into such great detail on what your process was and sharing with us that you were interested in trying to keep the representatives, kind of rotated. I understand that as a value, and I think it's a perfectly good thing to think about when you're putting people on these positions. Just as an aside, if you really want to switch, I'd be happy to switch with you. I'd take partnership plan, and you could take MSHSL. But I'm perfectly happy with MSHSL.
We can chat.
We can talk about
and
that.
Partnership plan is a great. I don't want it to.
No, and I don't mean it that way, but no one had chosen.
I think many of us have already done.
No one had
several of
chosen
us have already.
partnership plan.
I'm perfectly fine. Just thought it was.
We definitely can talk.
We can talk. Okay. So I understand all of that. And I think Paula would do a fantastic job with 916 as well. However, clearly something happened here between, I don't know if it was a miscommunication or what you want to call it, that, Mike has served on our Northeast Metro 916 for a number of years now, and as such, has done a fantastic job and has represented our district well and really built some very strong relationships with that organization. High level of trust, high level of communication, high level of understanding what that agency, what that organization can do for our students. And I think that for this process, that's absolutely an important thing to consider as well. And he has such a high regard from this group, they elected him chair of their organization. So I really do kind of think that might be something we need to consider. Certainly if we don't put Mike as our representative for 916 at this point, that is going to make us, it's kind of embarrassing for us as a board. He's going to have to go back and say, they're going to have to go through a voting again, and it's just going to be weird. I think if there's some really super compelling reason why that's a bad idea, I'd like to hear it. But otherwise, I think he should be our representative of 916.
Well, let me answer your first question. Again, full disclosure and total transparency. Director Potacek did ask to speak with me after the board meeting on January 4th and indicated that he would like to be reappointed to 916. Again, I said, as I had indicated at the board meeting, I was not going to make any decisions till I heard from everyone who may want to be involved in whatever organization. I was not going to make decisions without consulting Vice Chair Pelletier because that was the process that I had indicated at the board meeting I was going to follow. Director Potacek did indicate that they were having the board elections. I think the meeting was January 10th. And that I had again indicated that I would hope to try to make a decision, but again, I wasn't making any decisions till I had emails from everybody as to what their wishes were for any position. So as I had indicated, I wasn't going to fill EMID till I found out if anyone else wanted to be on EMID. I wasn't going to fill any of these. And I think it's important, too, that the public understand that there are two board representatives that actually pay. So 916 board members receive a stipend of $5,000. EMID, is that the same? $2,400. So
I'm sorry, what was that?
$2,400 is EMID.
What's the first one you said?
916 is $5,000 for being a board member.
It's an additional. Yeah.
So there's that as part of why people may or may not want to be on it. But I'm just saying those are the only two where there's an additional compensation for being on those boards. I did, as part of trying to find a compromise, when I found out that Director Potacek had been elected, unbeknownst to me, as board chair, on Monday, reached out to the superintendent for 916 to see, and it was really at Vice Chair Pelletier's suggestion as to whether or not you could have 2 board members who could serve on 916, thus allowing Director Potacek to stay and Director O'Loughlin to both be on 916. Superintendent Hayes said that that's not possible. Let me read to you Superintendent Hayes' email to me. Good afternoon, Tom. We do not get involved with the member district's appointments to the 916 school board. The selection is your decision. If you decide to change your member, the 916 board would run an election for the chair again. We had several who were interested in the role, so I doubt that we would lack candidates. As an aside, I do hear quite often from the member district superintendents that it is common for a number of their board members who are interested in joining the 916 board, and the decision can be a little difficult for their boards. We will welcome a new member if that is your decision. Good luck, Connie Hayes. So, again, it is not for me to say, I made the decision, and as I indicated to Director Potacek, if you and Director O'Loughlin want to switch, I'll support that. I agree with you, Director Stivland. If you want to work with the partnership plan, I'm more than happy to do this, the State High School League. But, how we set this out and how I said I was going to do it is how I followed through on all of this. So that's where I was at. Director Potacek?
I would like to talk, if I may.
Absolutely.
First of all, I've been on 916 for 5 years, and I've seen it grow. It was originally 9, 10 schools, and now it's 14. And an interesting reason why I think I was recruited, because I was, and both Tom and I were approached by Kathy Bucos, and were offered or asked, would you be interested? And at that time, Tom's interest was elsewhere. I don't know completely why he made the decision, but I said, sure, I'll do it. Now, one of the reasons why the choice was put before Tom and I is that all the representatives were female. And one of the things that was a concern was we need more men. I have served 5 years. I am still the only male representative. Now, there has been a turnover because most districts reconsider a year, although some of them have 3-year terms or 4-year terms or whatever. And in part of that, we did pick up last time around a male representative from White Bear Lake. So there would be 2 out of 14. Now, be that as it may, but I think it's interesting, and one of the topics that's continued attention for 916 is also looking at gender equity, and we've taken some approaches to doing that. Now, the timing wasn't ideal for this. We met, and I'm trying to get my dates correct so I say this correctly. Our last meeting, we met January 4th. The person who had been the long-term chair for 5 years, may have been longer, I can only talk about the time I was there, same person, 5 years, reelected every year. And that's true of most, not all the offices for 916. It's been 5 years. But she did announce she wasn't coming back, and she did announce that there would have to be an election for officers. So I've always been a very, very strong interest in 916. So what I did, and Tom's referenced that, is that following our January 4th meeting, I talked to Tom, and we talked probably 5 minutes. And the point I was trying to make there is that we were going to have an election, and that I definitely thought I would be in the run for chair, and I didn't want to get it and then it be an embarrassment, which it is somewhat tonight, and a dilemma. Now, the part is that if I had known that I wasn't going to be reappointed, it would have been foolish for me to run. Tom talks about me going to the meeting, and certainly I can do that, but I don't think it's appropriate. If I'm not appointed, I think it's more appropriate that the new delegate go and represent the district. I'm always open, whether it's me or whether it's somebody else, to fill them in if they're interested. One of the things that's true of anybody, whether it's this school board or anything else too, is collective memory. If you have a big turnover of people all at one time, that affects. Quite honestly, I did not know when I talked to Tom whether I was going to be the chair or it was going to be somebody else. And there was originally it was 3 people were going to run. One person dropped out of the race, and it came to myself and one other person. And quite honestly, after I was elected at that Wednesday meeting, I was pretty moved by the whole thing. And I went to speak, much like I'm talking to you, and I got about a sentence or two out, and my emotions kind of got the best of me. Now, I mention that because I don't take that lightly. I don't think I would have run if I had known there was no intent on my part to embarrass the district. Now, information-wise, is that following our 9/16 board meetings, Connie Hayes does an excellent job of putting together the minutes of the meeting and what she calls talking points, the main points. And if I'm given time later on, I will highlight what maybe the last that I'm going to do on that. But right in the top, she listed myself and all of the officers in order. And what I did, and I typically do, is right after I get them, I send them to Barb, and Barb then gives them out to all board members. Now, again, I'm not positive how much transition that is. Tom mentioned that he met the following Saturday. I don't know if that was January 6th or January 13th.
13th.
Yeah. And so anyway, the other thing that many of us were very, very involved in last week is we were at the MSBA convention for several days. So there wasn't a lot of time in those as well. But I'm saying I sent those out fairly early. So that's the dilemma. I would say this, Tom's correct, my number one choice, what I wanted, was 9/16. And I wanted to be reappointed to that. And that grew even much deeper, obviously, after I was selected as chair. But I was selected as chair on January 10th. So I'm saying there's a fair amount of time in there. The second choice I've made, I've made that for 2-3 years, and I don't always expect to get the choices that I put down there. But I asked for finance. I wanted to be on finance. And for the second year, I wasn't chosen. Okay, I can live with that. The third choice that I had, and I think other board members do, was community engagement. That's a new work group that's been created and is out there. Now, the appointments that I got I think those are appointments, is number one, I got invited to be the C representative, and I've been a strong advocate of C. Whether I'm appointed the representative or not, I will go to a lot of those meetings, just like I do the same thing with AMSD. I attend those meetings because I want to learn more. The second appointment that I got, completely unrequested, but it's like any of these others. If I'm assigned them, I will work to my best ability, is I was appointed chair of the legislative committee. And that's a repeat of prior years. Whether there were other applicants or not, Tom may have mentioned that. And then the third one that I was appointed to was community engagement. And again, I was thankful for that. leading up, and I don't want to put pressure on there, but I just want to be very transparent, as Tom said, is this is important to me. I can live with if it doesn't occur, but I did contact by email Director Laughlin and requested that if she was interested and willing, I was to switch any of those assignments. So if you wanted to be on the legislative committee, if you wanted, I don't know about the chair, that's not up to me, but that's up to Chair Lehmann. If you wanted to be on community engagement, I was willing to do that. If you wanted to be the C representative, the official representative, I was willing to do that. So I think that's a pretty good play of the events and how they've flowed out. And it is. It's a complex situation. Some of it, I think, as Director Stivlin has mentioned, communication is always tough with these things. All right. Oh, Director Laughlin.
I'll respond since I'm the kind of the other player in this scenario, so to speak. So, Director Potacek, I agree with you. We are in a dilemma, and I feel that we are in a dilemma because of your actions in terms of the choices that you made of going to that meeting.
Excuse me. Hang on. Thank you.
Without having the authority of the school board. So last year I ended up being at AMSD, but before I had any official clarity on that, I would never have gone and got myself elected. So that, I think, is where I'm wrestling. It's did the board members of 916 know that you had not been there in official capacity? Because I think that also alters the election. I think that's a fair question. So do you know? Did you let them know?
Sure. And Paula, the point is that it's hard to synchronize 14 different districts. They purposely, normally, they meet in the first part of January, but not all boards work simultaneously, so it's different timelines. And if I may, and so I felt at that point the district needed representation for the election, whether it's me or whether it's anybody else.
So I really feel that, Director Potacek, I'm in a no-win situation, because if I don't cede, it looks like I'm trying to pull rank or, bully you, as others have suggested, which is not the case at all. My first and foremost interest is what is going to be in the best interest of our district and our students.
I agree.
Bar none. Nothing even comes close to a second. That being said, I think that again, I think in the process, it just seems a due process was not followed. That if you went there, even just giving the board or Tom a heads up saying, I'm going there, I'm going to throw my hat in for a ring, or I accepted, and letting us all know, because now, like I said, I'm in a situation where, that because I also wanted to learn and grow and be part of that collaborative, and I think that's an opportunity that should be afforded to all of us. I think that, so I agree with you. We are in a dilemma, and I feel that, I'm kind of a no-win situation. So I'm not sure what you're expecting me to do.
All right. Hang on a second. Director Pelletier?
Just a brief comment. For me, I felt I was really excited about the work that we did, because I think it's so important for the public that we're servants, that that we learn all these different roles and we have a fresh face in all these committees. And for me, that's why I didn't fill out anything either prior to us sitting down, because I thought, it's only my first year, I'll take whatever. The only thing that for me that mattered was just being on a new committee, and it wasn't such a big deal what it was. But I don't need to share that perspective, the one thing that I want to make note of for the public, really for transparency purposes, is 916, I feel in a way, unfortunately, has a little bit of onus in this, in that they put this system together prior to any district or whomever it was setting their organizational meeting. So basically, if we had our organizational meeting prior to this situation, we would not be sitting here right now in this uncomfortable and really tough and painful dilemma. So I feel it's been a tough situation, and like I said, I had no idea there was even a board like that. So thank you.
Do you want to?
Yeah, if I may.
Sure.
And the reason is, Jennifer, I'm just trying to react to what you said in defense of 916. 916 usually meets on the first Wednesday of the month.
That's the law.
They purposely moved their meeting back. And the reason they did that is the type of thing you talked about, wait to settle it. We're perhaps unique in that we take longer to make our assignments or designations. And so I don't think they're necessarily wrong. Obviously, they're going to be alerted to what happens tonight or what happened in this situation. And I don't see an easy solution in that for them, even looking with hindsight. And I'm sure, and they are, and Connie Hayes is somebody who bends over backwards to try to make things free, equitable, and balanced. But I'm saying that's part of the dilemma. Sorry.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Director Pearson.
Thank you. Just to your point, Director Pelletier, I think that's a really good point, and maybe we need to talk about if we need to change our policy. Maybe it needs to be something we discuss at our organizational meeting so we have everything right there. Maybe that's a solution. But I would like to make a point that I don't think it's fair, Director O'Loughlin, what you just accused Director Potacek of. I think it would be normal for any of us to continue in the capacity in which we were placed until a new placement was made. Last year was on SEAC, and I think it would have been acceptable for me to go to the January meeting before these were made. So I don't think there was any ill intention or any attempt to manipulate on his part, and I think it's unfair to claim that. The other thing that I would say is that, the other organization is EMID, and I think out of respect for knowing that George wanted to continue in that position, that is why nobody else put their name in. And so I think I understand your desire to serve there. I just think maybe you can serve in that capacity next year now that you've seen how much Director Potacek wants it. And it is up to you. And whatever it is will be how it lies, but you're not in an easy place. But I think out of respect, maybe you could consider letting him do that.
Right. I think there's a lot of assumptions there. I think that what I had said, I think was fact. I think we are in a dilemma in part because Director Potacek went to that meeting and got himself elected before we had clarity. I think that's factual. I think that's fair. So I don't think that's an accusation. I think that's exactly what happened. So.
All right. Well, I agree with Director Pearson. I think maybe what you could do is, we all know this comes up every year annually, that rather than having people send out emails after the election of the board chair, you could indicate at that meeting so that it could be decided at that meeting. So, next year I would say, for the policy committee to maybe say, we have the organizational meeting coming up. You should send in what you would like to be to whoever the board chair is, and then whoever gets elected can go through the emails again relative to the wishes. Again, whoever the board chair is could say, no, I'm going to appoint whoever I want, because that's the authority that this policy gives the person. I'm, and Vice Chair Pelletier did what we thought was the fairest, ask everyone what they wanted to be on, and indicate that there were no preconceived positions, that any position was open, and to meet afterwards to fill those up. Again, timing was probably not the greatest, but that's where we're at. So I'm going to move on.
Tom.
Okay.
Can I just ask
Sure.
a question? Can you tell me how long has George been on EMID?
I don't know. George, can you
10
answer
years.
that?
You've served on EMID 10 years straight?
Yes.
Okay. And over those years, have you ever had a challenge to that position by anyone that you know of?
Not that I'm aware.
Okay. And then I just have one more thing.
Sure.
Paula, you said earlier in your statement that that you really do want what's best for kids. It's very clear that there's value in having a long-term relationship with these organizations, as George has demonstrated in his work with EMID. He has been a very valuable part of that organization, and he's brought those skills back to us as a district and helped make our district better and helped make things better for our students. The same situation is happening now with Mike. He has developed a relationship with this very important and valuable organization, and they respect him so much they elected him chair. And that is what's best for our students, because now we're going to continue to grow in a leadership role in this very valuable organization that will help our students. So if you really want what's best for students, you will do the right thing and let him be the chair of this organization. Give him that, because that's the right thing to do and because that's the best thing for our students.
Okay, let me interject there. This is not Paula's decision. I was the one, and I'll take the responsibility.
You gave it to her, though. You said you would.
Excuse me. I was the one that made the appointment, all right, with consultation from Vice Chair Pelletier. I indicated since then, if you want to switch, Dr. Potacek, Director Potacek should talk to Paula O'Loughlin. But all of what you said was known by myself and Vice Chair Pelletier when we made the decision.
Okay.
Everything.
So you knew he was going to run for chair?
No. I knew he had been on 916 for 5 years. I known he was, had been on there since Kathy Buchholz was done with it. I had no idea that. I knew that there were board positions open because Mike had told me that they were having the board elections. I had indicated to Director Potacek that I was not going to commit on January 4th to appointing anybody because I had not heard from all of the people on this board as to positions that they wanted. I was aware that there was board positions available.
Yeah. But Tom, when you and I talked after the meeting, I told you that there was a good possibility that I was going to be elected.
And I told you, Mike, that I was not going to appoint you till after I heard from everybody who was going to want to be on those positions.
Yeah. But my point is this, and I apologize because I know this puts you in a tough spot, and I wish you weren't there, is I talked about even the fact that if I was elected and then had to retract because somebody else was appointed, that this would be an embarrassing situation.
Well, this is really hard because you and I are very good friends, and this is challenging, but this is the role that I'm in. I agree that you said to me that you would like to get a position and that positions were available, but I recall, because I wanted to be open and transparent, that I was not appointing anyone to any position on January 4th, as I wanted to hear back from everybody, and that I was also indicating that I valued rotating people in various positions.
Yeah. But my point being at that time, and again, we're both trying to recall an event that occurred. If you had said to me, Mike, don't bank on the position, or even if you get elected, you're not going to be chosen, I probably would have, they run their organization meeting very much like you and I do. And I could have said at that point, no, I'm not going to be the representative. Turn to somebody else.
And I don't disagree with you, Director Potacek. My point is, I did not know that someone else wanted to be on 916. It could have been just like Director Hepner. All 7 of us submitted something. No one picked EMID. All 7 of us could have said, I don't want 916 except you. I had no idea on January 4th when I indicated I was going to take emails from everyone, and when I had talked to you after, that I didn't know who was going to want to be on 916, and that I couldn't commit to pointing you on 916 until after I opened it up to everybody, and they could choose what they wanted to be on.
Can I just add one last comment?
Sure.
This is a terrible situation, and I think I really, going forward, want to not have this happen again. So, Shelley, to Director Pearson's initial point, I would love to make a concerted effort. I don't know what we need to do for that to ensure that this doesn't happen, because I had no idea that there was even a leadership. I had absolutely no idea that that was even something that was part of 916. So I do not want this to happen again, and I want us to work together to make sure that we have our acts together, kind of at the very beginning, after, possibly before, whatever, our organizational meeting. So I just want to make sure we take care of business going forward.
All right, let's move on to the...
Can I just
sure.
speak on another subject? Because we've had conversations, I want just for the board to know that for the history, as long as I know it, from when I've been on the board and when I've been coming to meetings, it's always been that the treasurer is the chair of the finance working group and that the clerk is the chair of the policy working group. And I didn't, for a second, feel like I wouldn't be appointed to that. And I guess I'm left feeling, and after this conversation too, I'm just left feeling a little bit like some of us are being marginalized, because I don't, it feels intentional that I don't know if you're worried I'm going to do something or that I'm not going to act appropriate or whatever it is, that the choice would have been made differently than the history has been, unless the treasurer would have recommended that they not be finance working group chair. I was really surprised by that, and surprised that Director Laughlin isn't chair of policy. I still don't have a clear understanding, but I am frustrated, and I just want to make a point of that.
Yeah.
That is not I think the rationale with that was more, with regards to the policy work. I think my opinion was, we had some of those retreats, and it was, we had some conversations that, it doesn't have to always be, what we've always done. And I think a lot of times we get criticized and put into some sort of a box where we've always done it this way, so let's continue that. And I can tell you from my personal perspective, I thought, well, maybe this is kind of an interesting, switch up, basically, that, with Director Pearson as the treasurer, which I've nominated you for, and I'm very happy that that passed. The bigger one for me, to be honest, was the clerk and the policy, because I felt that Chair Hepner would be able to, because he really commented quite a bit on the policy work, and was exceptionally diligent in reading through those policies and providing background. So that I thought, maybe we can kind of exercise a switch up in that regard. If this is that kind of a big of a deal, I have no problem going back to our old standard. I mean, it was just for me, I look at, like, even EMID. If someone would have asked for EMID, I would have said the same thing. Oh my gosh, 10 years. We kind of had the thought process that we would, I believe, allow many people the opportunity to have different positions. So that's important for me. I think it contributes to the health of the district that we all spread the love, so to speak. For me, I want to be on as many committees as I can, so I did not take any of this that seriously as it comes to, for me, I'll be honest, policy was kind of important, and it was no offense to, I apologize if that sounds like it's offensive to Director O'Loughlin, but I guess I just thought Chair Hepner was very diligent in his policy work, and, might we exercise that opportunity? So that was kind of the bigger one for me, but if this board wants to move back to the way we've always done it, I have no problem with that at all. I don't, so.
All right, a couple more and then we're going to move on.
All right.
So Director Stivlin?
I just think that if you're going to make a change like that, it would have been nice for you to have the conversation, at least with the person that would be affected, to explain why and give them a heads up as far as, this is what the thinking is, and are you good with that?
That's very fair, yeah, thank you. That's fair.
Because that was obviously a surprise. Yeah. I mean, and it didn't impact me, really. I wasn't going to be a chair of any of those positions anyway, so it was a surprise, and it didn't even affect me personally, but I was a little bit hurt for both of them. I'm like, wait, what's going on here? That seems weird. Because that's how I thought it was. I thought it had even been written in our minutes from our last meeting that that the treasurer is always the chair of finance, and the clerk is always the chair of policy. I just thought that's how it was. So. But I agree with you. It doesn't always have to be. Well,
that's
if it isn't in a policy,
right.
We should talk about
that's
it.
That's the whole point. And really, if we're afraid of, again, and I really appreciate your comment, because you're right. That conversation maybe could have happened and it didn't. Everything was kind of moving fast. But, I'm a fan of trying to open new windows and just, seeing what we might be able to do different. But again, if we just want to go back to what we've always done, I have no problem with that with regards to treasurer as chair. That's completely okay with me too. So.
Well, and I don't have a problem with that, but that would mean changing our policy because our policy does not indicate one way or the other. So if that, again, I don't care either way, but that's not how it is right now, and that's what we were looking at when we made these appointments. So I am going to move on now because we have to conduct other stuff. So the action items tonight we have are the master contract for the custodial employees, and I'll turn it over to Director Moen.
Good evening, Chair Lehmann, Superintendent Pontrelli, and members of the board. This evening I'm here to request your approval of the master contract with the Custodial Employees Union, and this is the 7th of 7 groups that was expired last June. This group represents 55 employees holding positions as building engineers and custodians, as well as grounds personnel. On December 11th, 2017, the district and the custodial group reached tentative agreement on the 17-19 master contract. The terms and conditions of the contract were presented to the custodians and ratified on January 6th of 2018. The master contract for this group expired on June 30, 2017, and with your approval tonight, it will be retroactively implemented to July 1st, 2017. As it relates to the language, other than updating outdated language, there was very few changes made to the master contract. In order to align the custodial contract with the other bargaining groups, we did add 2 language items that impact employees that were hired on or after January 1, 2018. The first limits eligibility for insurance coverage to the high deductible for new employees, and the second limits employees' coverage under the health and dental insurance to 1 district policy. It does, however, as with our other contracts, provide a VEBA in lieu of that, giving up that duplicate coverage. Additionally, in accordance with the board parameters, the district contribution towards health insurance was adjusted to maintain the 85% district paid and 15% employee paid for family health insurance, and the district contribution for dental was increased to fully cover that premium. As it relates to salary, there was no change made to the salary schedule in the first year of the contract. There was an increase of 4.52% in the second year of the contract. Lastly, as with our other groups, we did agree to an MOU that allows employees of the custodial bargaining unit to participate in the sick leave bank that we recently implemented as a part of the SCEA contract. If I'd be happy to answer any questions, otherwise administration recommends approval of the contract with the custodial employees.
Before we have any questions, could I get a motion to approve the master contract with the custodial employees union?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, that was Director Pearson. All right, any questions for Director Mullen?
I've got just one. Are we having any difficulty getting custodians and/or engineers, or do we have applications on file that we can reach out for? I think you might know what I'm.
Yeah, we are actually having difficulty finding custodial applicants. A lot of it is due to the economic situation and how things are shifting. So we have been doing some work to try to find some different ways to do some recruiting and working with the coordinator of facilities and site operations to do that.
You don't think that has anything to do with a salary schedule that may or may not be comparable to other districts, or other districts having the same problem, or just?
To be honest, I haven't checked with other districts. We have not heard that it's because of our salary schedule. I'm not going to say that that doesn't have a factor, but they have not said that they're not applying because of our salary schedule.
Anyone else? Kathy, is this within the parameters that the board set?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Seeing no other questions, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor of approving the master contract with the custodial employees signify by saying aye and raising your hand. Aye. Opposed? Same sign? No.
Thank you.
The last action item is a resolution to withdraw from the East Metro Integration District, and I'll turn that over to Superintendent Pontrelli.
All right, thank you. As I stated in a previous update to the board, I'm recommending this evening that the board move forward with a resolution that would give us the option to withdraw from Equity Alliance, or EMID, effective June 30th, 2019, if desired. For those of you, just as a reminder, Equity Alliance, or EMID, has been providing culturally relevant learning for us in partnership with Stillwater since 1995 through professional learning and student programming for our kids. Examples of this have been our PATH program, which was providing access to higher education, K-readiness programs, the SEED, Seeking Equity and Educational Diversity programs, and our AVID training. Equity Alliance remains a strong partner for us, but there are several variables that may impact the choices that we might want to partner with in the future. These variables include new possible partnerships with other districts, and with the forthcoming retirement of Dr. Lepke, new leadership at Equity Alliance. As a few of you may remember, we gave a similar letter to Equity Alliance, then EMID, in 2013, but then decided to revoke that intent after having further study and looking at what the programming was. This letter isn't a confirmation or a resolution that will be leaving the partnership, but would keep the options open for future consideration. And EMID, much like TIES in the past and other collaboratives, when there's a possibility that you may want to leave the organization, you have to give them a timeline so they can think about staffing and programming. So this is really just a formality. The decision, it wouldn't be in effect until June of 2019. And we would really be looking at this next year, investigating other partnerships with districts, looking at the services that EMID provides. And for this next year, we are already part of EMID, so it really isn't going to impact or take away anything from our programming for our teachers or our students. It's just an add to actually right now.
All right, before we have any questions, could I have someone move the resolution to withdraw from the East Metro Integration District?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right. Any discussion? Let's start with Director Pearson.
So I'm confused about what the reasoning is for this. I haven't heard anything that we're unhappy with services or anything like that, so I need a little bit more information before voting on this.
Right. We aren't unhappy with the services. As I stated in here, there's some things that may be changing. We've been approached by some other districts about partnering with them. To access integration dollars right now, we need to be part of some type of a collaborative. And so EMID gives us that option, but if we would partner with another district, that would also give us that option. Dr. Lupke has done an amazing job with EMID and Equity Alliance the past few years. She's going to be retiring. We aren't sure what the leadership or the direction of that organization is. That's all about 18 months out. And so this just really gives us the opportunity, if we would want to change something in the future, we can, but it doesn't mean that we have to. It's just a formality.
Director Potacek?
Yes, I have a couple questions. And one is, we did this once before.
Right.
And then we stayed with EMID. Is this one vote or is it two votes? In other words, like tonight, we're doing what we have to do to give notice that we might go in this
Right.
direction.
And then we'd vote again.
And it would be with this body
Right.
of whether membership or some other membership. And secondly, and I'm not asking for that tonight, but I think Director Pearson kind of thing is a big part of this is the financial impact on the district in terms of integration funds or anything. So I would look, as you do your research, consider alternative groups. What are going to be the financial impacts? What are going to be the learning impacts? What's best for our kids, which I know is always near and dear. But those are kinds of questions I'd like to know.
Sure.
Director Hepner.
I think one of the other things, and Mike alluded to the previous study that we did with a previous superintendent, and I think perhaps the dots weren't connected at that time. And I know Superintendent Pontrelli has done some work ahead of time to connect some of the dots that never did get connected during our previous study. So I think the idea of taking a look at this with the idea that there are other partnerships out there is probably a worthwhile thing for us to do.
And just for you to all know, I did have a conversation with Dr. Lupke and talked about that we'd be bringing the resolution forward, and she understands.
And I think at the same, if I may, at the same time, I think Inver Grove Heights and South St. Paul have both put a similar letter out there. Again, studying and seeing if there are other partnerships that would be better for their use.
Dr. Potacek.
Are there some partnerships, obviously they're in the same situation. If they go it alone, they lose the funding in terms of integration. Are there other collaboratives that are nearby, that are close, that would be considered?
Yes.
Is it appropriate to name
I don't know. I'll leave that up to Superintendent Pontrelli.
I don't think so until we have conversations with them. But to your answer, there's West Metro, there's East Metro, there's different collaboratives. You don't have to be geographically close to them. It makes sense if you're doing student programming and that kind of thing.
All right, let me read the resolution. Be it resolved by the School Board of Independent School District 834 that notice be given to the East Metro Integration District on or before February 1st, 2018, that District 834 intends to withdraw its membership from the EMID Joint Powers Agreement and its participation in the EMID Collaborative. The notice of withdrawal shall be effective on June 30th, 2019, the calendar year following the notice of withdrawal as outlined in the Joint Powers Agreement. Said notice of withdrawal shall be in the form of this resolution sent to EMID's members via its Board of Directors. All those in favor of the resolution signify by raising their hand and saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
And abstained.
Okay. All right, the next item are the school board, or the board member chairperson reports. For the chair's report, obviously, this is my first full meeting, so we haven't had a lot going on. I would remind, there are a couple things. One, I attended the lottery for the kindergarten Spanish immersion. It was exciting to see how that program has really started to take off, and the community is really starting to support it. We had a number of people who were trying to get into that program, but due to the size right now, some will be on a waiting list. Basically, the criteria is there's a Tier 1, Tier 2, and Tier 3. Tier 1 people are automatically in the program. Those are people who live within the Lake Elmo attendance boundary and also have one parent who speaks Spanish. Tier 2 were parents or kids, kindergartners who reside within the Lake Elmo School District. And Tier 3 was for people who were outside of, who would open enroll basically to Lake Elmo. And Carissa, maybe you can just share, because it was really exciting to see that this is a program that's really starting to take off.
More than 65 applicants, so there is a wait list, but the process itself is exciting. You know, you have a little hopper with the names in it and pulling them all out, and letters will be going out to families in the next couple of days to let them know whether or not they made the cut or if they're on the wait list. But it is definitely an exciting program. We have interest from outside of the district. Unfortunately, none of those outside students made it because of the tier system you just described. But again, we do have a lot of interest in this program, a lot of excitement, and I know families are anxiously awaiting those letters to find out if they got in.
The other thing I would want to remind the board as well as the public, tomorrow we're having a meeting, a learning session or a working session from 1 to 2:45 to work with Mary Ciccone on finalizing our board goals. And then also we are having a meeting from 3 to 4:30 to look at our facilities as well as hearing from the administration relative to requests for proposals that they're looking at background people to work with demographers. Again, going forward with making sure we're picking the best people at the best price and moving forward. And then finally, I wanted to indicate that I think that was it. Those were the two things that I had. So, it was one other thing. I have received requests from various board members regarding agenda items that people would like to see coming up. I received an email from Director Pearson talking about trying to come up with communication from the superintendent that meets everybody's needs relative to what we're doing and seeing if we can either change it, update it. I also had an email from Director Stivlin with regards to questions she had relative to the budget, and I indicated to her that we would be putting that on a board member or a board agenda. So those are the two things. I guess what I'm saying is I'm encouraging everyone in the interest of full transparency that if you have agenda items that you would like to see at upcoming board meetings regarding topics that you think are important for the public, please get them to me as I meet with Superintendent Pontrelli to come up with the agendas for the month. And so I will definitely be getting these two on, but if anybody else has anything else that they would like to have discussed, please get them to me, and I will do my best to get them on as quickly as possible.
Can I ask a quick question
Yes.
in regards to that? What about if we have like ideas for policies? Would we bring that to the policy committee, or is that something we would have a whole board discussion before it would go to policy?
I guess for me, it would probably be a good idea just to bring it up at a board meeting and then have the collective decide if that's a policy issue and then send it that way or for a full discussion.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And that's all I have, thank you. So board member reports, I can start down here with Director Hepner.
Sure. Board members, you've got a report from the EMID board business meeting from last evening. What I would like to point out is one item, number 5. Lobbyist Chris Amundsen, who happens to be a Stillwater resident, presented her expectations of the integration and equity issues that will be present in the 2018 legislative session and some issues that the legislature will face that may impact their willingness to spend other than for a bonding bill. Some of those issues include the priority requests from organizations that include special education funding, pension funding, achievement gap closure, and the alignment of ESSA with the world's best workforce. And her comment was that she had begun preliminary discussions with various legislators about those. She did note that the session will begin on February 20th and said that the current budget forecast deficit of $188 million would be updated at the end of February, and then that will no doubt impact much of what the legislature does going forward. But the rest of the board report you can see on your own. And then just one other thing, and I know perhaps Mike or Tom would mention this also, but Valley Outreach has sent something to each of the board members, and it's offering a chance to take a look at statewide demographics. And here's just their brief little blurb, but you do have to get tickets and RSVP. In partnership with the Children's Defense Fund, Valley Outreach is hosting the only local presentation of the annual Minnesota Kids Count Data Book on Wednesday, January 24th from 4 to 5:30. At the free event, attendees will learn the trends in child well-being and discuss what it will take to improve child outcomes. Then there's a paragraph that talks about, due to the state's shifting demographics and the growing number of older Minnesotans and the rapidly increasing people of color across the state, our demographics are changing. And then it says also, Children's Defense Fund Minnesota staff will also share Washington County specific data. And I know we all got emails from Tracy Mackey about that, but you do need a ticket. They have that e-invite, I think it is, or something like that. So if you have the opportunity, Wednesday, January 24th from 4 to 5:30, it sounds like it would be interesting.
Director Pelletier.
All right. Two things of note. Director Potacek and I were at the recent 916 Career and Tech Center visit it was at Century College, and I was absolutely amazed by the excitement from the staff and the kids. We got to meet some kids and learn about some of the different programs that they have, and I knew nothing about it, and I'm so glad I took the time to go over there and see it. And it's nothing but opportunity for our kids. It's anywhere from police work to we saw just various hair care and all the kids who just really were honed in on what they want to do with their lives, and they just had nothing but excitement. I just thought this was just an amazing opportunity for us in Stillwater with this partnership that we have, and it was just great. It was really positive, and it was really a wonderful experience. And then lastly, I guess this will be my last time with this. So the Da Vinci Fest, which we all know about, was just remarkable. We had the Senator Amy Klobuchar attend, and I just can't even begin to say enough about how much I've appreciated being able to represent the board this past year. What tremendous work these people do and give in hours of their day to the community is just outstanding. And honestly, when I was there and I saw these families and these kids, and they were so excited about their artwork and the things that they made, the technology that they created, it was a prideful day, and that's really all the work of the partnership plan. So it's celebrated, we get so used to celebrating sports and music and this and that, but these were some strategic and specific things that these kids did, and it was all about them that day, and I just truly loved it. So anyone who's seeing this from the partnership plan, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for the past year. Thank you for everything you do for this community. I'm going to be sad to leave this, but excited to move on to a new committee this year. Thank you.
Thank you. Director O'Loughlin.
Well, no, to be honest, I just want to reflect a little bit on the earlier conversation. I appreciate that Director Potacek spoke his truth. I felt that I did as mine. I feel that is what is going to help move our board forward when we can be really honest with one another. So, Mike, I respect your point about gender equity. As you know, as someone who's deeply committed to the work of equity, That's something that that is important to me. I did not know that, so I appreciate that. As I stated earlier, the number one concern truly is the welfare of our students, and I don't take lightly that it may seem embarrassing or face-saving, if you will, for you to have to go back to the board. I stand by my assertion that I think we're all in a no-win situation. I think this was just a confluence of events that could have been avoided with different actions that proceeded. That being said, my desire to learn and grow in my own professional and personal development of 916 is does not trump what I think is best for our students. And if the continuity for Dr. Hayes and the other board members, and if the board members truly did know that you were elected with the knowing that you weren't yet a delegate, I can respect that. And I know you had contacted me earlier. I was traveling most of the day, so I didn't get to respond. So I haven't had a lot of time to process or flesh this out. So I guess what I'm saying is that if serving on 916 is something that you would still like to do, I think it's in the best interest of our students to for me to seed that. We can have that conversation. I appreciate Chair Lehmann's leadership. This is not at all meant to undermine his decision. I know that he had left that up to us. But like I said, I stand by my assertion and my truth that I think that this was just an unfortunate display of discussion that could have been avoided. However, you were elected chair by your colleagues at 916, and if that's something that you would wanted to continue to do, I'd be happy to cede that to you.
Can I respond, Tom?
Absolutely.
First of all, let's do this. You think about it overnight. And I regard your offer as very, very generous, and I'm very, very grateful. But like you said, and when you answered my email, you said, hey, I just got off an airplane. And so I know the wear and tear that might be. So I want you to feel tomorrow that's still the way I think. And quite honestly, if you put the offer out there, I'm willing to take it, as well as my offer that if you look at any of the other assignments I have that would be attractive in its place, you're certainly welcome to those considerations for Tom, because he did to make the final call. But I ask you, or rather I thank you for making that very generous offer.
No, I'm confident that I'm of clear mind to regardless, despite the long travel. So I think that, again, for the sake of our students and for the continuity, that is in the best interest of our kids.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is that all you had, Director Lockwood?
Yes, thank you.
All right, Director Pearson.
I have nothing.
All right, Director Stivlin.
All righty. So I just have a couple things. I served also, just jumping off from Jen Pelletier's, Director Pelletier's comments about the Da Vinci Fest. I have served as an art judge for the last couple of years. Before that, I served as a science judge, so it's kind of seen both ends of it. It is absolutely something that is, I think it's one of the best things we do as a district. It is so exciting and wonderful to be in that building when those kids are just on a high. There's so many amazing things to learn. I love going through and looking at every single science project and every single art project. It really is awesome. It's just a great energy. And it was so wonderful to have Senator Klobuchar there. She did a wonderful job. It was very fun. Yes. Thank you so much to the Partnership Plan for making that event for us and for all of that they do all the time for our students. It's kind of amazing. Just quickly wanted to mention the MSBA. We were all there, lots of different things going on. We've talked about before. Just wanted to mention that we had I kind of set up a show and tell booth, sort of a little place where people can talk about different ideas that they're trying out in their schools. And we talked about flex time. With Shelley and I served on the booth for a while, and then Principal Bach came, and Katie Barre, one of the teachers at the high school as well, to talk about flex time specifically at the high school. Chris had made us this incredible trifold display. I think our display was the best of all the different show and tell booths, of course. But I was really actually surprised at how many people stopped, and they asked a lot of questions, and they were very interested in what we're doing and whether or not we had positive outcomes. Of course, we just started it this year, so we said so far everyone loves it, but we don't really have anything definitive. But it was really interesting because a lot of the things that we were hearing are things that other districts are looking at, trying to find ways to empower students to engage in their own learning, find opportunities to make decisions about how to use their own time, manage their own, responsibilities for their own learning experiences, which are all really, I think, incredibly important things for us to try to teach in students, but it's very difficult in the typical school day to find opportunities to do that. And so flex time, I think, is something that is kind of doing that a little bit. And giving students something else kind of interesting to do, a little bit of a break in their day. They can do cross-stitching or yoga or whatever. And so I'm very looking forward to seeing how flex time works out by the end of this year and as we go forward, if it continues to grow. And it was fun to talk about it. So that was great. And thank you for helping me with that. The other thing I wanted to just mention briefly, I know a number of us had wanted to attend the mental health conversation on Tuesday night. We missed you. It was it was really well attended. I think we had a very good group of very smart and engaged community members. Just to touch on it briefly, what they talked about at the presentation is that there's kind of a continuum of needs for mental health, and it's awareness, prevention, services, crisis. And so we broke up into two groups to talk about, we sort of split it down the middle. So awareness and prevention was one side, and services and crisis were on the other side. And I was in the awareness and prevention side, which actually was a great place to be, because I feel like that's the side that is really more in our lane as a school district. Of course, we have crisis, we have systems set up for those things, and we do a really good job with that, I think. But the awareness and the prevention is the piece where I think there's a lot of room for growth, a lot of room for improving how we talk about mental health, how we prevent it, how we support one another, how we look for growth in one another, and be good, better listeners, and that kind of thing. So it was really exciting to be there. I heard a lot of really amazing ideas. I'm so excited to be a part of this ongoing conversation. And as you mentioned before, Denise, anybody who is out there listening that is interested in this type of thing, please come. Please get engaged and find out. There's still a lot of work to do, and we're moving along, and it's great. It's really wonderful. So thank you for getting that going. That's all I had.
Thank you. Director Potacek.
Yes, a couple things, and I will be quick, and there are about 3 or 4 points, and they mainly have to do with, excuse me, Northeast Metro. Northeast Metro is holding their Education Foundation Gala at North Metro Event Center in Shoreview, and that is going to be on Friday, February 23rd. And it goes from about 5:30 to 9 p.m. Primary purpose, it's a fundraiser, and they raise a lot of money, and they put it back into kids and programs. And the short of that place, if you are interested, want to go, it's kind of the cross place for Highway 694 in Lexington. It's right there, I'm told. I'll have to find it myself. It does cost, this is some of those compensation dollars that Tom was talking, $45 per person, and I'm saying it goes toward a good cause, and obviously there's a lot of fun, but there are also a lot of events that are designed to raise money out of those people who attend. So if you're interested, please let me know. A couple items, these are themes. that we've heard a lot about what we're doing here. They're also happening at the 916 level, or really about 14 school districts, is that we heard from the Director of Educational Services. He gave an equity update for 916, and we had a nice presentation by Dr. David Everett. He talked about the school board history of equity work in our collective districts since 2011, and an update on current practices. Also, for all board members, they're being invited to take, and Paula, you might be more familiar with this than I am. It's called the Intercultural Development Inventory.
IEI.
So that tool will be used to help individuals advance in their personal equity journey. So that's something we'll look at. Now, if you want to know anything about that, please let any board member can actually just key in on the link here. But there's a video introducing themselves to staff for an upcoming professional development day that is completely dedicated to advancing equity work. So 916 is very involved in there. Secondly, and this goes to Sarah's topics, and I'm saying these things come back and you're not alone, we heard from the Ramsey County mental health body, and in particular we heard from a social worker, the lead social worker, Dan Porter, and he introduced a film called The Whole Story, and it's a documentary style training film about children's mental health and trauma. One of the things I think it's important for the public to know as well is not only that there's a large number of kids who are undiagnosed, untreated, but that a lot of students, unfortunately, who in the past were institutionalized are now out in our communities and in our schools. And that's changed the whole paradigm significantly. And again, if you want to take a look at that film, if you're in the audience, if you're home watching this on TV, I can give you a website to go to, either the video on equity or also on this one. What struck me when I watched this very, very powerful video is they showed kids, about a half a dozen different kids at different age groups, and who were going through those kind of struggles. And I'm saying, without giving their identity, it's probably a 30-second shot or whatever, but it's very, very tragic and something we've got to deal with.
Director Potacek,
Yes.
could you just repeat that? So it's The Whole Story. Was it Dan Parker, did you say?
Dan Porter.
Oh, Porter. Okay.
P-O-R-T-E-R. If you look at this list of talking points,
It's on there.
it's on there.
Okay.
It's a second from the
All
bottom.
right, thank you.
Then if you flip the page, one last area that I want to talk on, because I'm saying at least at 916 level, they're doing it with their students and with their staff, is to also look at gender equity commitment. And so Jean Jordan, who is the comparable curriculum director, gave the board an overview of the school district's newly adopted commitment to gender equity, which addresses guiding principles, relevant laws, and a commitment to fostering a gender-inclusive school and workplace. So those are the same. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I want to, before we adjourn, make sure everyone got from Barb the mileage reimbursement form. Again, we adopted a generic idea, but I think the personnel policy will want to work on this. Included with the packet is the overall district travel-related guidelines, which we would be bound by, and also sets out what you need to do in order to submit for mileage reimbursement, and then also, as I indicated, the form. So, I'm assuming,
And parking.
yeah, and I'm assuming they'll turn that into you, Barb, when they.
Yes, please.
Okay.
And the directions are a lot larger than the form. Just fill out the form and give it, it'll be just fine.
Thank you
Thank you.
for doing that.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone. With that, could I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Thank you. Second? Thank you. We are adjourned.